Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at the unique helmet, the Grand Crown, known as the Crown of Thieves. The Crown of Thieves is an absolutely excellent early find, especially if you're doing ladder, just simply because it can literally make or break your mercenary early on. Having a lifesteal helmet can honestly be a huge boon to your mercenary and really increase his survivability quite a lot. Let's take a look at this helmet and we'll get an idea of what it could potentially be good for and what it might not be good for. So right off the bat, you'll notice it's 342 defense with a strength requirement of only 103, which is a little high for level 49 for some characters, but not too bad at all. We have Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at the unique helmet, the Grand Crown, known as the Crown of Thieves. The Crown of Thieves is an absolutely excellent early find, especially if you're doing ladder, just simply because it can literally make or break your mercenary early on. Having a lifesteal helmet can honestly be a huge boon to your mercenary and really increase his survivability quite a lot. Let's take a look at this helmet and we'll get an idea of what it could potentially be good for and what it might not be good for. So right off the bat, you'll notice it's 342 defense with a strength requirement of only 103, which is a little high for level 49 for some characters, but not too bad at all. We have a 12% lifesteal per hit, which is variable to 9 to 12%, so you can find the Crown of Thieves in kind of a poor condition with a lower percentage. And especially as you get into Nightmare and Hell difficulty, where the lifesteal penalties are, this can be an issue. If you've never researched lifesteal penalties, I would recommend that you take a look at my lifesteal penalty video. Just, take a look at my channel. Search for D2R lifesteal Ginger Gaming Mentor or something like that. I'm sure you'll come across my video on lifesteal penalties. We have 200% enhanced defense on this, which does vary by 40%, so it can be as low as 160% and as high as 200. We have a nice bonus to dexterity here of 25, which is pretty massive and is going to give you a nice bonus to your defense. It's going to give you a nice bonus to your attack rating. It's going to give you a nice bonus to your block chance, all of which are very handy. And of course, if you are having trouble equipping an item, like maybe you were utilizing a high dex item, like something like Bartek's Cutthroat, which has 79 dex requirement, this could also help you put on a weapon. We also have a rather nice bonus to life here of plus 50 to life, which is pretty darn sweet. And honestly, 50 life can be a lot at level 49, especially if you are a character that doesn't have a lot of life. And for a mercenary, of course, also very nice to have that as well. We also have 35 to mana on here, which is static, and that is also a very nice little bonus to mana. And for characters who are not specifically built around mana, 35 to mana can actually be like most of their mana pool. I know, for instance, paladins, when they first start out, are only at about 15 mana, and by the time they get to level 49, they aren't really that much better unless they've got some kind of plus mana equipment. So this can come in handy for that. Of course, it's going to have absolutely no effect on your mercenary because mercenaries don't have mana. We also have a fire resistance of 33%, which is certainly very nice to have. Fire is one of the more common elements in Diablo. The Baal, Diablo spams it. The shamans spam it. There's Inferno. The pit lords spam Inferno. There's fire everywhere in Diablo, and I feel like having a little bit of extra fire resistance is certainly going to help out you and your mercenary, especially if you plan on farming the council, which is full of hydras. We also have a 100% extra gold for monsters on here, which is definitely very nice and could also be a good council farming item. Extra gold for monsters does apply on your mercenary, just like Magic Find does. It does vary from 80 to 100%, so if you're looking specifically for that, maybe try and find yourself a 100% extra gold for monsters helmet. It will stack on top of yours, so for instance, if you are utilizing some nice extra gold for monster equipment, maybe as a find item barbarian, for instance, you are going to be able to stack this on top of yours. However, it is important to note that it doesn't affect your kill. So if you have 500% extra gold for monsters and your merc has 100%, it has to be his kill. So he's the one that actually has to make the killing blow to get that effect. Now, the ethereal version can also have some really nice defense. It can go up as high as 513, which is definitely very nice. And that is, of course, with the 200% enhanced. The ethereal version makes an absolutely excellent merc item because not only does it have the lifesteal, the dexterity, the extra life, the fire resistance, the extra gold for monsters, but it also has more defense because it is ethereal. The Crown of Thieves can be upgraded, but it's probably not going to be the best upgrade unless you're doing it specifically for a mercenary. And this is because the Corona, which is the elite version of this item, has a relatively high strength requirement of, I believe it's 170 something. Which is not very good in terms of, trying to utilize on a character. But for a mercenary, a high-level mercenary, it could be okay. I do feel like normally, though, you end up with better items, better helmets than the Crown of Thieves by the time you get into like the level 70, level 80. It might be something that you use for quite some time, but usually you end up upgrading your mercenary to something like maybe even a Shaco or a Andariel's Visage or, a Steel Skull Cask. There's a lot of different choices that you can put on his head, maybe even a Delirium. So having a really high strength requirement helmet around may not be the best, especially considering the Crown of Thieves is absolutely great for lower level characters, and once you upgrade it, you're not going to be able to get any more use out of it. So let's take a look at it real quickly here, which is 342 defense, 103 strength, level 49. To 357 defense, 174 strength requirement, level 73. So quite a bump there in both the strength requirement and the level requirement. One thing I did forget, though, is that it's important to note that Crown of Thieves is not particularly rare. You usually will see quite a few of these in your level up process. So upgrading one of them and leaving a couple of them non-upgraded certainly would be fine. I just usually like to have at least a couple of Crown of Thieves to throw on mercenaries as I level up characters. Of course, you can always share it, but when I can get away with not sharing an item, I usually do, because sharing everything is not going to be the most viable thing in the world. Every time you log into a character, half your characters are going to be naked because you're sharing every single item that they've got. So the ethereal version upgrades from 513 defense, 93 strength, level 49, to 516 defense, 164 strength, level 73. So as you can see here with this particular helmet, it doesn't really upgrade that well in the defense category. We went from, 342 defense on the Grand Crown to 357 on the Corona, so not really that great. And then for the ethereal version, again, it wasn't really a huge upgrade. And this is because the Corona doesn't really have that much more defense than the Grand Crown, and there's also a variance. So if you take a look at the Grand Crown, the base defense of a Grand Crown can roll between 78 to 113. When you roll a helmet to upgrade it, it re-rolls the defense according to a hidden statistic. A lot of people don't know this, but it's like a hidden item code. And the hidden item code means that the defense can potentially roll badly. So when you look at the Corona defense has a defense variable from 111 to 165. So what this means is that because the highest defense possible on the Grand Crown is 113, and the lowest defense possible on the Corona is 111, there is an overlap, which means that potentially your Crown of Thieves can actually lose defense. If you had a particularly high defense Grand Crown that was being upgraded into a particularly low defense Corona. Now, it can actually go up, but not by as much as you would think. So the highest that a Corona can roll is 165, and the highest that a Grand Crown can roll is 113, which is a difference of, let's see here, 113... minus 165. I did say 165, right? Yes. Which means a difference of 52 defense. So if you were to have like the perfect Corona version, you would get a 52 defense bump over the original, which really kind of means that upgrading the Crown of Thieves is probably not a good idea, because most of the time you're going to end up with less defense than when you started. Let's take a look over at Silo's Pen real quick, and we'll have a look and see where potentially you could find this item if you wanted to. So this actually is something that a lot of people search out early on in a ladder, specifically because the Crown of Thieves is just that good of an item for low-level mercs, and getting your hands on one early can make a huge difference in your mercenaries' survivability. But assuming, of course, the level requirement on this, let's say we only have about 150% magic find, and let's go over to Silo's Pen real quick. There we go. So on Silo's Pen, we have a drop probability. It looks like Bale is our best bet at 1 in 767. We also have Hell Andariel, which is 1 in 775. Hell Mephisto at 1 in 821. And Hell Diablo at 1 in 844. But hold up a second. This is a nightmare level item. It's a level 40, what did we say it was? Level 49 or something like that? I can't even remember off the top of my head now, but it's in the 40s. So why would I want to be trying to farm this in Hell difficulty? Hell difficulty is going to be like level 60, level 70, level 80. Level 40 is like the beginning of Nightmare. Let's take a look at Nightmare bosses, and let's see how many bosses in Nightmare can potentially drop this. So Diablo in Nightmare... Iswal in Nightmare is a really horrible chance. Not a lot of good choices in Nightmare for bosses. Let's take a look at Hell difficulty. Or sorry, Super Uniques. Let's take a Super Uniques. So as far as Super Uniques in Nightmare go, not a lot of good choices either. Pendleskin, Cow King. Not a lot of monsters that are below Act 4 Hell. Or Act 4 Nightmare. So Act 4 Nightmare is toward the end of Nightmare, of course, and that's when you're getting into the level 60, level 70 range. Certainly not a lot of good farming choices for a character to actually find this on level. I've noticed this a lot with the exceptional or the nightmare level items, is that a lot of the times they just have absolutely terrible drop chances in the areas where you would actually want to find them. So, it does look like, unfortunately, as far as Super Uniques go, that you're not going to have a lot of good options. Bone Ash right here probably seems like one of the best options, literally a Hell difficulty farm. Farming Bone Ash, Rockadishu, Bishibosh, and Treehead Woodfist. That's probably your best bet right here for a low-level farm of this item, because most of the monsters are either way too high level or not really that easy to get to on a regular basis. Bishibosh, Rakanishu, Treehead Woodfish, and Bone Ash are at the very beginning of Hell difficulty and would certainly be easy enough to farm. They also have a really high probability to drop Shaco, Harlequin Crest Shaco, which could certainly be more useful to you than the Crown. I really wish there was a couple monsters in the Nightmare Zone which would have like any real good chance to farm. I mean, theoretically, if you had somebody who could open the portal for you, the Cow King could be an interesting choice to farm at a lower level. But the problem with that is that somebody has to have, of course, beaten Nightmare difficulty and then would have to come back and create the portal for you in Act 1. But that's really the only monster in Act 1 Nightmare difficulty who could potentially drop this item, is the Cow King himself. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we are talking about the Crown of Thieves. And as always, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at a relatively nice mask, which is pretty common, to be honest. And quite honestly, I think most people, when they find it, they don't usually keep it. And it's not because it's a bad mask, it's just simply because I think it just drops way too often for its own good. And that is called Blackhorn's Face. I always call it Black Thorns. I don't know why I always call it Black Thorns. I was literally about to say Black Thorns, and I was literally reading it off, and I'm like, that says Black Horns, not Black Thorns. And, yeah. So Blackhorn's Face is a death mask. It can be upgraded one time if you were interested in doing so. You would need a lem and a co-rune, but you probably aren't going to spend a lem and a co-rune to upgrade it. But you know what? We'll go ahead and we're going to do it anyway. Because, you know, it is something that I like to do with these videos, is if I can upgrade it, I usually do. But let's go over the item first before we go through all that. So Blackthorn's Face Death Mask is a 278 defense helmet. It is 419 in its ethereal form. It has a strength requirement of 55, which is extremely low, and is usually something that most characters can equip. It has a level requirement of 41, which is also very low, and usually means that you can utilize this very, very early on in the game. It has some very nice effects. It has Prevent Monster Heal, which is very, very nice. Prevent Monster Heal will completely stop any monster's regeneration for 20 minutes, with only a few exceptions, which is basically the Ubers. Uber Diablo, Uber Bale, Uber Mephisto, Pandemonium Diablo, and I do believe Uber Lilith, Uber Duriel, and Uber Iswal. You can cease their regeneration with open wounds, by the way. Prevent Monster Heal also does not work on mercenaries, so keep that in mind before you choose this as an item to utilize on a particular character. We also have slows target by 20%, which is absolutely great effect. It will slow down all monsters' run speed, walk speed, and their attack speed, not their casting rate, by 20%. And it does stack up to 80%, but not directly on top of each other. So if you are utilizing, for instance, Holy Freeze, which has 50% slow, and they are already slowed by 50%. It's not going to add 50 to 20 to 50. You're not just going to go to 50, 60, 70. Instead, how it's going to work is, you know, let's pretend that there was a mythical sort of like all-encompassing number as far as speed is concerned. And let's say we have 100 is our maximum speed. Holy Freeze would reduce that by 50%, which would bring us down to 50. And then the Blackthorn's Face would be subtracting 20% from 50, which would be 40. So it's not going to stack the way that you might think. There are many, many different items in the game and abilities that have slows targets effect on them. Holy Freeze, Decrepify, Clay Golem, many, many items in the game have the slows target effect on them. And just in general, I think you will find that slows target is absolutely a great ability to have for a melee or ranged character. It does not work on spells, so keep that in mind. We also have an enhanced defense on this from 180 to 220%, so a little bit of a variable there. We have a lightning resistance, which is being added, of 15%, which is definitely very nice to have. It could be higher than that, but 15% is something. We also have 20 lightning absorption on this, which is a really high amount of lightning absorb. And if you are unaware of how absorption works, basically, if a monster hits me for 100 lightning damage, I will absorb 20 of that lightning damage. So it will take 20 of that lightning damage away from the 100, and he will only be dishing out 80 to me. The 80 lightning damage will hit my HP bar and dish out 80 damage. Then, after I take 80 damage, I will heal for the exact same amount that the lightning absorb took away. So I will heal for an additional 20 HP. However, it is important to note that if you do not have 80 HP, you will die. The absorption does not take place before you take the damage. It takes place after you take the damage. So the absorption removes the 20, you take the damage, and then it heals you. This can sometimes be a detriment if you are in a situation where you're taking a really large amount of lightning damage. The absorption is not going to prevent your death, but it will heal you after you get hurt. So, you know, just keep that in mind if you're going up against gloams or something like that. That if they hit you hard enough, they can bypass the absorption. We also have attacker takes lightning damage of 25, which is absolutely useless at level 41. The majority of the monsters in the game have way more than 25 hit points at this particular time, plus the resistances, and it just generally does nothing. Now, of course, you can find this in the ethereal form, which is the 419 defense, but if you utilize this in the ethereal form, it's not going to be very useful to you because it's eventually going to break. You could put this on a mercenary, which wouldn't exactly be a terrible idea, but he's not going to get the prevent monster heal effect. He will get the lightning resistance and the lightning absorption, as well as the slows target effect, which is going to be very nice. And of course, you can socket this, and you could put something in here to make it a little bit better. Who could potentially utilize this? Well, the slows target and the prevent monster heal are very strictly melee and ranged abilities. So you probably would want to put this on a melee or ranged character. The slows target could be absolutely excellent in the hands of like a multi-shot boson or something like that. Could really help them out a ton. It also would stack with freezing arrow if you were a freezing arrows on. Zeal paladin could get good use out of it. A whirlwind barbarian. I mean, quite honestly, there's not a lot of characters that couldn't get good use out of a Blackhorn's face. The main issue with this is there are better options out there. There are options that have plus to skills. There's options that have lifesteal. There's options that have other effects that are better than this particular item. But a lot of the times when you find a Blackhorn's face, you usually end up keeping it for that lightning absorption. I've used it on many occasions when I was surrounded by gloams to prevent my death from gloams. And if you're wondering how you can prevent your death from gloams, the black souls, the lightning spamming monsters, what you have to do is you have to have 95% lightning resistance, which is obtainable, and lightning absorption. Usually, if you have 95% lightning resistance and absorption, they can do absolutely nothing to you. You can get absorption in quite a few different ways. One of them is the Titans. Sorry, about to say Titans. One of them is the belt. I can't remember the name of. All of a sudden, it is just right there on the tip of my tongue, and I've literally used it about 1,000 times. But good luck, brain, actually pulling up the name of it. Like the little hamster in the wheel up here. He's just ka-chunking along. He's just ka-chunking. T-Gods. T-Gods! That's the name of it. T-Gods. So T-Gods is another belt that you could get that potentially has lightning absorption on it. There's also a ring that has lightning absorption, which is called Wisp Projector. And you can actually stack all of them together and get even more lightning absorption. You know, maybe you're going up against a really evil lightning spamming sorceress in PvP, and you would just like to get as much lightning absorption as possible. Stack all three items. Why not? So what we're going to do next is we're going to upgrade this, and we're going to see how the defense and the stats upgrade. So like I said, we're going to need a Lem, a Co, and a Perfect Diamond, and I'm going to... here we go. We're going to take a look at it. So 278 defense, 55 strength, level 41. Death Mask. To a Demon Head, 435 defense, 102 strength, level 62. Not a bad upgrade at all. To be honest with you, the strength requirement didn't go up high enough to be detrimental to pretty much any class unless you're a 0 strength build. And the level requirement really didn't go up so high to make it untenable. Definitely a good upgrade, 100%. The ethereal item could also be upgraded, and I imagine this one's probably going to upgrade very well as well. So again, a Lemico and a Perfect Diamond, and we're going to go from the Blackthorn's Face Death Mask, 419 defense, 45 strength, level 41, to the Blackhorn's Face Demon Head Mask, 704 defense, pretty nice, 92 strength, and level 62. That's actually a really nice helmet that you could throw on a mercenary. If you didn't specifically need the like lifesteal effect that you usually have on a lot of stuff, that could be a really nice temporary piece until you get your hands on something like an Andariel's Visage. It's not bad. Well, there's really not a lot more to go over with this particular item. It is a simple item. You know, it doesn't have like Crushing Blow or like Open Wounds or Deadly Strike or any like kind of like crazy effects like that, but it does have some effects which make it pretty useful. On many occasions, on many of my videos, you'll see me with a black horn's face just sitting in my stash. And the reason is because when I come across those situations where I would like to have some lightning absorption, it's a very cheap and very effective item to get that lightning absorption. In fact, my Conviction Paladin actually ran a black horn's face permanently. What I did was I actually had built him to be the super tank. You know, he had all of his resistances at 95%, and he also used 3 items to gain absorption. He was using a Dwarf Star, he was using a Ravenfrost, and then he was also using Blackhorn's Face, so that he had lightning, fire, and cold absorption, and that way he was able to absorb every single element, and pretty much he was nigh unkillable. He had 50% physical damage reduction. He had absorption in all 3 elements, 95% resistances, and quite honestly, he hit like a freaking Mack truck in single target because he was using a very nice single target weapon. And that's kind of the very interesting thing that you can do with items like this. Now, of course, instead of Blackhorn's Face, I could have used T-Gods as my belt, but I would have lost a pretty hefty chunk of my physical damage reduction, which was not what I wanted. It all comes down to balancing things out and making sure your character is either A, tanky enough to kill who he needs to kill, and B, does enough damage to kill who he needs to kill. This particular character that I built, he was tanky enough to literally take on anything. He could stand there in the middle of the Ubers for pretty much forever and not take any damage. And he also could kill anything that he came across, which was definitely very fun. Anyway, as always, I do hope that you enjoy these videos, and thanks for watching, and keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at a very interesting shield, one that you may not know even exists because it's kind of rare. It is called the Spirit Ward Shield. It has some very interesting effects on it, and I think as we go over it, you guys will be like, that's actually kind of interesting. I could maybe build a character around this. It also has a very pretty appearance, as you can see. Just a very cool-looking appearance. In fact, you know what? This is Fashion Diablo. We need to go take a look at the appearance on the main screen. Look at how beautiful that is with the blue horns and the black and the gold, and it just looks really cool in my opinion. Just a very awesome-looking shield. I do think those horns in the back could be kind of a detriment to you, though, and I'd probably end up stabbing myself in the throat with one of those, which would probably not be good. Let's see here. So the Spirit Ward shield has some very interesting effects, and one of them is the ability to cast Fade on yourself. Now, you may be familiar with casting Fade on yourself through the Treachery Armor, which is a very common source, and the Treachery Armor does have a higher level Fade than this. There is also another item in the game that gives the Fade proc, which is the Last Wish rune word. But this is one of them that can be worn on your shield hand, obviously, whereas the Treachery Armor has to be worn on your body armor slot, and the Last Wish is so ridiculously expensive that most people never obtain one. The Spirit Ward shield is an interesting choice for maybe somebody who would like to have Fade in a different form. Now, right off the bat, you'll notice that it has some pretty nice defense at 478, and the ethereal version is 719 defense, which is certainly not bad. We also have a chance to block of 75% on both of these. Now, it is important to note that it's actually over the cap. So we have a chance to block of 84% for Paladins, 79% for Amazon, Assassin, and Barbarian. 79% is, of course, over the cap, which is why it reads as 75%, because the cap is 75%. However, if you are a sorceress, necromancer, and druid have a cap of 74% with this shield, so it is a relatively nice shield as far as blocking is concerned. But we do have a variance in the blocking because the effect on the shield, which has a 30% increased chance of blocking, does vary by 10%. So it can be 74% for paladins to 84%. It can be 69 to 79% for Amazon's assassin and barbarians, and it can be 64 to 74% for druid, necromancer, and sorceress. So it's important to keep that in mind. We also have a relatively high strength requirement on this of 185, which is pretty darn high, a lot higher than the 156 that you would need for a spirit monarch shield, for instance. It's just using that as a reference point. We also have a level requirement of level 68 on this, which is a relatively high level. Quite honestly, this is an endgame shield. Level 68 is getting into hell difficulty. You've probably killed Baal or on your way to kill Baal in hell difficulty by then. If not, you're getting close. You've probably killed Diablo or you're working toward him. So it's in general, it's a endgame shield. We also have the 5% chance to cast level 8 Fade when struck. So a 5% chance to cast when struck is not an amazingly high number, but it actually does proc a lot more than you would think. You can also proc this just by simply standing in the fire. So if I were to maybe go to hell difficulty and I just wanted to see if I can get this to proc, I could go to the River of Flame. There's a bunch of fires here that are relatively easy to stand in, very, very easy to get to. You would just stand in them until you would get the Fade proc. Now, one of the ways that you could know that you've got the Fade proc is you could look at your resistances. So one of the things that Fade does is it gives you a rather nice resistance bonus to all your resistances. You get a 71% curse duration for having Fade up. You get a 50% to all resistances, which is going to be added on top of all your normal numbers. As you can see, my resistances just went up to 75%, 75%, 60%, 70%, which is very nice, so a nice 50% bonus. We also get a duration of 204 seconds, which we could divide out on a calculator to get our exact minutes. So 204 divided by 60 is 204 divided by 60 is 3.4 minutes. So basically 3 minutes and 40 seconds, which is not bad at all. 3 minutes and 40 seconds is a pretty long duration. And Fade also provides a physical damage reduction of 1% per level. So at level 8, we are getting a very nice 8% physical damage reduction, which can be seen right here because we have 28%, which is coming from various pieces of equipment. But if we take off the armor, you'll notice that we go down to 8%. So we have 8% and 20% from another source, so we're getting 28% physical damage reduction, which is very, very nice. That can actually counter, by the way, amplify damage and decrepifies negative physical damage reduction. So it's very nice to have that extra bonus. Now, it is important to note that because it is a on-struck effect, sometimes it can be a little difficult to get to proc because you do have to be struck. But keep in mind, and I've had this argument with quite a few people, that there are a lot of abilities and spells and things in the game which can proc on struck effects, even when you would think that they wouldn't. I have been able to proc a lot of on-struck effects, and I do so with things like lightning, chain lightning, fireballs, firebolts, and there is a lot of abilities in the game that will bypass your defense and your block chance and will still proc the effects. So it's important to remember that when you're thinking about on-struck effects. Everybody always jumps the gun, and it's like, but if I have a high defense, high block chance build, and I have an on-struck effect, it's never going to go off, and that's a lie. It'll go off all the time. I've tested this with Medusa's Gaze quite extensively, and Medusa's Gaze has a on-struck effect, and I'm running a Paladin with 30,000 defense and also 75% block chance, and the lower resistance curse still goes off all the time. Now, granted, it's a little bit higher percent proc chance on the Medusa's Gaze than it is on this, but lower resist is also something that you need to go off more often than Fade. Fade having a 3.5 minute duration, as you can see, it is still up. You only need it to go off every once in a while to refresh the fade effect. On this shield, we also have some other nice effects. We have the 25% faster block rate, which is definitely very nice. That means that we're going to be able to block faster, and that is certainly going to be extremely useful for a non-paladin character, because non-paladin characters tend to have rather poor block rate, and they need that increase. What we talked about earlier, the 30% increased chance of blocking does vary by 10%, so it's 10 to 30. It would be kind of sad if you found one of these and you didn't find the 30% increased block rate, because that's a little bit of an important stat if you're going for capped blocking. We also have all resistances on here of plus 40, and it does vary from 30 to 40. So this is very interesting, because not only does the shield give you 50 all res essentially from fade, but it gives you another 30 to 40 in the form of on the actual shield. So you can theoretically have 50 plus 40 on the shield, so you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So 90% all resistances with this shield. And Mr. Neat, I'm going to have to ask you to come out of there, because you're misbehaving. You hear him kecking at me? He's mad at me because I'm telling him he's to stop. I don't know what he's doing in there, but it's really weird. It's weird. You're going to stay out here for a minute. He does not listen. So we have a total of 90% all res on this, and you can theoretically increase it even further. So if I wanted to put an rune in here, an rune is, I believe it's 22 all res in a shield, or we could find a very nice 15 all res jewel with some other effects on it, or you could just simply put a diamond in there for the 19 all res. And you would have a massive amount of resistances that could literally carry you through most of the game. Now, resistances are not the only thing you could do with this shield, but if you could imagine, 90 plus 22 is 112. So 112 all resistances just coming from your shield, and that's pretty darn amazing. On top of that, you also get the curse reduction and the physical damage reduction, both of which are very, very nice. It's important to note also that curse reduction does reduce the duration of beneficial shrines, because shrines are classified as curses. If you've never actually had a shrine before get overwritten by a curse, and a curse get overwritten by a shrine, well, there you go. That is how you know that they are basically the same thing. So not only do we have all these massive, really nice defensive abilities on this shield, but we also have another defensive ability in the form of cold absorption. So the shield provides you with 6 to 11 cold absorb. Cold absorb is an ability to basically take any damage that comes in from cold and absorb it to your health pool. So how this works is let's say, for instance, we had an ability that was coming in that was doing 100 damage in cold damage. The cold absorb would take 11 points off of the 100, bringing it down to 89. Once the damage is at 89, it would then attack our health orb. It would deal 89 damage to our health orb, and then it would heal us for another 11. Because it's not just taking that 11 damage away, it's taking it away and using it to heal us with it. It is important to note, however, that you have to have enough HP to take the 89 damage. So it's not going to heal you before you get hit. It's going to heal you after you get hit. And this is actually a way that absorb kind of gets bypassed sometimes in PvP, because if you manage to deal enough damage and the person cannot take the initial brunt hit, the absorption, of course, cannot heal them because they're dead. But, you know, looking at this shield objectively, it just has so many good things going for it. And it is unfortunate that they added in the Paladin-only shields, because if they hadn't added in the Paladin-only shields, it could be a very interesting choice. And speaking of Paladin only, I have to talk about the smite damage on this shield, which I almost forgot to mention. So this is a elite shield. It is a ward shield, and the smite damage on ward shields is 11 to 35. It's not the greatest. It's the higher damage smite shields are like the spike shields and the skull, you know, like the bone shields, and of course the Paladin only shields. The ward shield is not one of those higher smite damage items. So an extremely defensive shield, but where could we potentially find this extremely defensive shield? And that's a really good question, because I feel like most people probably never even see this thing because it's that rare. I've actually been looking one for a while, ever since I originally heard about it, and still have not found one. I would like to get my hands on one just for testing purposes, but of course I can always test it here. But let's go over to Silo's Pen and let's look at potentially where we could find this. And where is my window? Bink. There we go. So here we go. We've got a probability of Hell Andariel, 1 in 321 chance, with 400% magic find. I'm kind of surprised I haven't found it yet with such a good chance from Hell Andariel. And is this really the right one? No, it's not the right one. Oh, Spirit Ward, not the Ward. I was like, those numbers don't make any sense whatsoever. Of course, there's so many different Ward shields. Bink, bink, bink. Spirit, where are you at, Spirit Ward? There you are. One more time. There we go. That's more like it. That's what I remember. So Bale in Hell is a 1 in 2,071 chance. Neelathak is 1 in 15,770. Diablo in Hell is 1 in 16,750. So it does seem like this is an item that's probably going to drop mainly from Bale. And if we take a look at our super uniques, you can see we have pretty crappy probabilities on all these super uniques. I mean, we're talking about the best is like 1 in 15,974, which is Neelathak. Frozenstein, Pindleskin, 1 in 17,000. Thresh Socket, same thing. I mean, and then it just gets progressively worse from there. 1 in 24,000 from Doc Farron. Akmil the Cursed, all these are relatively awful chances, and it just kind of gets even worse from there. I'm kind of surprised that Eldritch even has a chance to drop this item, because his chance is so ridiculously bad at 1 in 192,990. So I guess if you manage to get it from Eldritch, Shank, or Hephaesto, you've pretty much hit the lottery there. It does look like Pindleskin might be the best choice for quick and easy farming, but Bale is definitely the best choice for just simply, you know, the best probability. Of course, he takes a lot longer to kill than Pindle. All right, guys and gals, I hope you enjoyed this episode of unique items on the Spirit Ward shield. And if you're interested in getting your hands on one of these, good luck. It's going to be a little bit difficult to come by. I can certainly see working this shield into some builds just simply because it's so defensive. But at the end of the day, resistances aren't really the end-all, be-all of every single build. And a lot of the times, you can usually work in resistances in other ways. And do you really want to rely on Fade for the ability to, you know, protect your character? Although it is nice to have that as an overprotection. Keep in mind that you can equip this shield, get the Fade effect, and then, of course, you can unequip it. But the Fade on Treachery is higher level and a little bit easier to get your hands on than this one. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching. Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at a lot of different items. One in particular, which is a kind of an oddity, is the Stone Crusher Mallet. The Stone Crusher Mallet is not the best item that can drop from the legendary Mallet series. If you have been paying attention to my unique item series, you will have seen a video on Schaefer's Hammer. Schaefer's Hammer is the other item that can potentially become a unique from this. If you guys are unaware of this, certain items in the game actually have two unique forms. Schaefer's Hammer and the Stone Crusher are two of these such items that have 2 different forms with the same base. There is also some other items, like, for instance, the Sacred Armor that Tyrael's Might can be made from, or rather, can be found from, also has 2 forms, Tyrael's Might and Templar's Might. So it's important to note this. Stonecrusher, I think, is the one that most people don't want to get their hands on. When they find a legendary mallet, they usually are trying to get their hands on Schaefer's, not this particular one. But this one does have some very interesting effects, and as we go over it, you'll see. So right off the bat, we have a 210 to 256 damage, and this is as high as it will go, of course, because it is an elite item already, so we cannot upgrade it. It does have a durability of 65, which is not bad for Zealers, but could be higher. It has a 189 strength requirement, which is relatively high for an item that is level 68. It's also relatively high in general, because most characters don't tend to go that high as far as strength goes. We also have a level 68 on this, which means it's going to be more toward the end of the game in usability. It has a very slow attack speed, and this is unfortunate because it does have some nice effects, which could be potentially useful, but when you look at the relatively slow attack speed on this weapon, it kind of makes you not want to use it. It also doesn't have any increase on it either, which is certainly a bad thing. We have 320% enhanced damage on this, which does vary from 280 to 320%. We also have a flat damage bonus, which varies from 10 to 30, and that flat damage bonus is very similar to the way that Grief works. We also have negative 25% target's defense on this, which does mean that any target that you hit will have 25% lower defense than normal. 40% crushing blow, which is pretty massive. It's not as massive as like the cranium bashers, but you know, it's a pretty high amount of crushing blow. We also have negative 100 to the monster's defense per hit. So not only do we have a negative 25% to the target's defense, but we also have a negative 100 defense to the monster's defense per hit as well. So we are getting 2 separate reductions in the monster's defense, which both add up to a lot of negative defense over a long-term period. We also get a 30 strength bonus on this, which I guess means, you know, you'll have enough strength to wield that Sacred Armor, which is 232 strength, and also a 50% damage bonus to Undead, which is off-weapon ED. I also forgot to mention that the strength bonus varies from 20 to 30. So we can also find this in the ethereal form, and the ethereal form has a little bit higher damage of 315 to 382. And one thing you'll notice about the weapon is it has a pretty nice spread. A lot of weapons will have a very low minimum and a very high maximum, or they will have, you know, just like a huge variance in between the two numbers. But you notice that the variance on the Stonecrusher is not very high. It's a very small variance, which means that your attacks are going to be hitting relatively hard no matter what ability you're using and no matter how the ability rolls. So as you can see, 1,813 to 2,263. And with the ethereal version at 2,696 to 3,323. A very nice spread, which means that you will have very, very few attacks which will not hit, you know, pretty hard. And a lot of the attacks, you know, will be somewhere in between 315 and 382, which is still going to be a very nice number. Now, the ethereal version, unfortunately, would require you to Zod it. There are no mercenaries or anything that can utilize the ethereal version, and that pretty much means that the only thing you can do with it is to throw a Zod rune in there and utilize it as is. But the problem with that is that it's really slow. Most people who would probably use this are going to put some type of increased attack speed in this just simply because it is such a absolutely slow weapon. It could theoretically be used with Whirlwind, which is not like the most terrible idea in the world because Whirlwind does get a lot of free hits. Those free hits allow you to utilize slow weapons. If you are unaware of this, basically how it works is Whirlwind gives you these, how do I put it? These free hits at the beginning of a rotation. I believe it's 1 or 2 free hits. These 1 or 2 free hits are independent of your attack speed. And so essentially, if you're whirlwinding with extremely slow weapons, you actually get a really huge benefit from this because, of course, your really slow weapon is attacking very, very slowly and does lots and lots of damage. But getting these free hits during the whirlwind allows the whirlwind to hit targets quicker than they would otherwise be able to. The problem with this is that you have to actually take advantage of the free hits. So if you whirlwind like this, which is where you just whirlwind from one direction to another, you're going to be dependent on the speed of the weapon. However, if you do the Dance of Death, which is very small whirlwinds in a nice triangular pattern, you can actually force the whirlwinds to get those nice free hits that you're hoping that they'll get. Basically, the free hits are only at the beginning of each rotation, and so to take advantage of these free hits, you have to actually force the rotations to be as short as possible, and that's essentially what you're doing. Is you're just taking these really small little whirlwinds, and you're just getting as tiny little whirlwinds as you can, so that you're getting these free effects. If you search for Diablo 2 Whirlwind Dance of Death, you'll come across what I'm talking about. There's probably some better guides than what I'm explaining it as here. That could get you a better idea of how the Dance of Death works, what the mechanics are behind it, why slow items tend to get a really nice bonus in terms of how the Dance of Death works. But the Stone Crusher Mallet is one of those items that just doesn't really work very well on a lot of builds. The extremely slow nature of it is not really balanced out properly by the hard-hitting nature of it. The ethereal version, of course, requires a Zod rune and cannot be sped up at all, so you're stuck with an extremely slow weapon. And quite honestly, it just doesn't really work out as good as you would think. The high crushing blow would make you think that maybe you could utilize it for a smite build, but the slow nature of the weapon, again, precludes that, because, of course, your smite is based off of your weapon speed, and having an extremely slow weapon is going to counter that almost entirely. A Zealer, again, would also have a lot of issue with this because it's so slow. You would have to put on a lot of increased attack speed equipment to counteract the absolutely slow nature of this weapon. But if you were a paladin who was using, say, Zeal, you had a good amount of increased attack speed equipment on, maybe you put a Shale rune in the regular version, it could work. The negative 25% target's defense, the 40% crushing blow, as long with the negative 100 monster defense per hit, is going to pretty much ensure that you're going to, A, be always hitting your targets, because the monsters are going to be relatively low on defense, and you won't really need much attack rating. And B, you will also have a relatively large amount of crushing blow as well to add on to that. But it is going to be strictly physical damage, and you are going to have to take that into account. All in all, I don't think that the Stone Crusher is usually an item that gets utilized to a massive degree. I feel like Schaefer's Hammer is probably utilized more. But he's probably utilized more than the Stone Crusher Mallet. But let's take a look and see where we could potentially find one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Silo's Pen, which is a website that I like to use for this kind of stuff. And we're going to take a look and see where we could potentially find this if we wanted to. All right, so here we are over on Silo's Pen. We're going to assume 400% Magic Find because this is a relatively high-level item. We're going to look at uniques, and then we're going to grab the Stone Crusher. Now, the base of this item, the Legendary Mallet, is a particularly high-level item. And because of that, you're not going to see this item drop in as many places as others. The Schaefer's Hammer, however, is a higher-level item than the Stone Crusher and drops in even fewer places. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't realize that they will find a unique Legendary Mallet, and there is absolutely no chance that it can be a Schaefer's Mallet because the item was found in one of the zones that Schaefer's Mallet cannot drop from, or from one of the monsters that Schaefer's Mallet cannot drop from. This means that if you have a unique Legendary Mallet, there's a very good chance that if you were in the wrong place when it dropped, it could potentially be... It cannot potentially be Schaefer's Mallet or Schaefer's Hammer. Although keep in mind that there is a feature in Diablo, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, that only one unique of an item can drop in that specific game. So if you are in a game and you get a unique Legendary Mallet, a Stone Crusher, and you identify it, you can actually, believe it or not, go and try and find another one. And if a second unique Legendary Mallet drops, it cannot be a Stone Crusher, and it has to be a Schaefer's Hammer. But you have to be in the right place for that unique item to drop. So it looks like right here we've got Bale with 1 in 1,481 chance in hell difficulty, of course. Diablo in hell difficulty, a 1 in 11,963, and pretty much just the putrid defilers and stuff that are in Worldstone Keep. The defilers have a chance to drop a lot of items, by the way. Usually when you see those, I recommend that you kill them. Neolithak has a halfway decent chance at 1 in 11,278, which isn't too bad. Let's take a look at super uniques. And for super uniques, we've got Neolithak, Frozenstein, Pindleskin. Not bad. They're all pretty terrible chances, to be honest. 12,000. 1 in 12,779. You're probably not going to see it very often. Thresh Socket, Sharptooth Slayer, Doc Farron. These are all pretty good choices. It looks like all of the Throne of Destruction wave monsters have a chance to drop it, although very poorly. And, of course, we can also look for unique monsters which are in high-level zones. So, as you can see here, this is really not about the monster and more about the zone. As you can see, we have, by probability, River of Flame, the Abyss Knights, the Assailants in Throne of Destruction, the Black Locusts and Maggot Layer level 3. I mean, you can basically go by level. You know, we have the Pit here, Pit level 1 and 2, Throne of Destruction, of course. We have Worldstone Keep level 1 and 3, probably level 2 as well. Ancient Tunnels, which is another high-level zone. Basically going to any of the level 85 zones, you're going to have a pretty good chance. Most of the zones here are level 85 zones, so keep that in mind. And you're probably going to have to go to a level 85 zone to farm for this item specifically. And that's with 400% Magic Find, by the way. With 0% Magic Find, your chances are going to be a whole lot worse. As you can see, we go from 1 in 24,000 to 1 in 64,000 by decreasing our Magic Find by 400%. Pretty huge variable there on the probability. All right, guys and gals, I hope you enjoyed this episode on the Stone Crusher Legendary Mallet. It certainly is one of those oddities that when you find it, you're like, what the hell could I possibly use this for? And honestly, I can't think of any other uses other than a character who is specifically not utilizing the attack speed of the item. You could theoretically use this on a Blade Fury Sin, just off the top of my head. The Crushing Blow combined with the huge amounts of negative targets defense could be useful on a Blade Fury Sin, especially in the ethereal version, because of course the Blade Fury Sin doesn't burn durability when she uses her ability. Maybe Kick a Sin? I don't really see it. I mean, possibly. If you guys can think of a very interesting use for Stone Crusher, put it down in the comments. I'd love to see what you have to say. And I like getting the community involved, so if you guys have some good tips, I want them down there in the comments so that other people can read your good tips. And if you have some terrible tips, I'll delete them. I probably will. Not even joking. Every now and then some people will come in with some absolute horrible lies, and I don't want you guys confusing the newer players with stuff that's not true. So, it may or may not stay. But a lot of you guys have good tips and good tricks, and I will leave those down in the comments for other people to read. As always, thank you for watching, and keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. We just did the episode on the Bone Flame Succubus Skull, and now we're going to be doing the episode on the Dark Force Spawn Skull, which it's just another interesting item. Now, the Dark Force Spawn Skull is one of the more extreme items on this particular spectrum toward a caster type. It does have rather high variables, though, and unfortunately can be rather poor in certain situations. But let's go over the item together, and we'll talk about what this particular item could be good for. So right off the bat, you'll see that it has 417 defense, which is on the higher end of this particular item. It has a 32% chance to block, which is really low, just extremely low for this particular item. If you are a character who is not planning on building any kind of max block scenario, this is probably a good thing for you. But if you are going to build some type of max block, this shield is going to make it next to impossible. If we have 140 to 180% enhanced defense on this, which does vary by quite a bit. So we end up with anywhere between 357 to 417 defense on this. And it's a 40% variable. We also have other variables on this as well. So it has +3 to summoning skills, which varies +1 to +3. It has +3 to poison and bone, which again varies +1 to +3, and +3 to curses, which again varies +1 to +3. It has 30% faster cast, which is static, and increases maximum mana by 10%, which is really awesome because it just gives you a flat bonus to your mana. As you can see, I have 710, and when I put on the shield, I go up to 754. So a nice 10% bonus, just flat added on. And of course, the more mana you have, the more that it will give you. Now, the really silly thing about this is that despite the fact that Darkforce Spawn is a really nice head for necromancers, the variables on it just kind of make it not so great. It doesn't have the +3 that Bone Flame has, but it does have +3 to each individual skill, and you have to find one that actually does have +3 to all 3 trees if you would like +3 to all 3 trees. Now, not everybody particularly cares about all 3 trees. Maybe if you had +1 curses, you wouldn't really specifically care, because most of the time when it comes to curses, you get enough plus to skills on those anyway that it doesn't really matter. And not really a huge downside, but keep in mind that having +3 to all skills is definitely better than not having +3 to all skills, and really this head kind of like has its competition. So Bone Flame is kind of like the in between, and Homunculus is the highly defensive one. And you notice that Homunculus has all resistances 40, very nice block chance. Bone Flame has all resistances 30. I put a P diamond in there. And it has no block chance. And then, of course, Darkforce Spawn Skull has none. Has no block chance, basically, and no all resistances. So very, very interesting here that they decided to go this particular route, where this is the no resistance, no defense, high offensive skill item, because, of course, it gives you the faster cast, whereas this is the high defense, high resistance, lower offense item. Now, if you are looking to find this particular item, I could try and help you with some probabilities. So let's go take a look on Silo's pen, and we'll see what kind of probabilities we have for this particular item. Because this is a relatively high-level item at level 65, we're going to assume that we are going to be a relatively high-level character looking for it. So let's look for the Dark Force Spawn Skull. Dark Force Spawn. We're going to assume we have 300% Magic Find for this because we are probably going to be a high-level character anyway. And it looks like our list is relatively small with only Frozenstein, Pindleskin, Snapchip Shatter, Thresh Socket, Akmel the Cursed, Martuk the Bloody, Kalenzo the Annihilator, Lista the Tormentor, Ventar the Unholy, Neelathak, Doc Farron, and Sharptooth the Slayer. And all of them are really terrible probabilities. The only ones that have anywhere near decent probabilities are these 4 right here. So Pindleskin might be your best bet, as well as Thresh Socket. Let's take a look at bosses. And again, a really tiny list here. So we're looking pretty much just at Hell, Bale, and Neelathak. And the Defilers, of course, have terrible chances, but they always have a chance to drop everything. They're in Worldstone Keep. So not exactly an easy item to come by already, as you can see, and also not even easy to come by in good shape, because more often than not, it ends up with bad plus to skills, which is certainly not a good thing. If you found a +1/+1/+1, you'd probably throw it right in the garbage. And it is still a relatively nice Necromancer head, though, for certain characters. I feel like it's kind of designed around the Poison and Bone tree, though. Like, it seems to be kind of made for the characters that are going to be spamming skills on a regular basis due to the faster cast rate and the mana. Squish. Squish, squish. Squish, squish. I'm silly, okay? I'm very silly. What kind of characters could potentially utilize this? Let's go over that real quickly just for fun. Obviously, it's a necromancer-only head, so only necromancers can utilize this, and it's going to be very specifically characters that are spamming skills on a regular basis. If you are, for instance, a corpse explosion necromancer, you might get good use out of it for faster corpse explosions. A poison nova necromancer could potentially get good use out of this, so he can spam his poison novas. Poison nova necromancers also tend to cast a lot of corpse explosions, so faster cast can come in handy in both of those situations. You can also potentially use this very well for a Bone Spear Necromancer, which of course is not bad at all. And Bone Spirit also benefits very nicely from faster cast. I don't really think you need it for much else. I mean, it could come in handy for Teeth if you were using that. I think for PvP, it works fairly well in PvP from what I hear. The curses don't really particularly need faster cast, although you could potentially use this for Decrepify, which does have a rather low duration. Being able to spam that a little bit faster could be helpful in certain situations. As far as your summons go, the revives can benefit from faster cast a little bit, just simply because it takes so long to summon a full army. So having a full faster cast can definitely be very handy there. But the problem is that revives cost so much mana, especially when they're capped out, that you can often kill your entire mana pool very quickly. So maybe not such a good idea there. You don't really need too much faster cast in the summoning tree. You don't really need too much faster cast in the curses tree. So it really comes down to the poison and bone tree. Are you building specifically any of the poison and bone skills? It could also come in handy if you were a character who is utilizing something other than a necromancer skill. I'm not really sure what that would be right off the top of my head, like teleport, for instance, could come in handy for teleport. Like if you were using an enigma, for instance, that could be useful there. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I'm playing with heads. Don't you just love those sound effects? Right? And as always, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be looking at the Assassin skill known as Venom. Venom is an odd skill which does require a little bit of explanation for those of you who may be interested in using it. When you level up Venom, Venom has a poison damage which goes up, and it also has a duration which goes up, but the duration of the poison itself does not change. It stays at 0.4 seconds. 0.4 seconds is really, really short. When you think of poison, you don't necessarily think of, because that's how fast it is. Like literally, when you hit somebody with this ability, it's instantaneous damage, which doesn't make any sense in my mind, because you would think that Venom would be an effect that has a long duration, but it does not. Venom also has some rather odd effects when it interacts with other forms of damage. So when you add additional poison damage to your Venom ability, what happens is it forces that poison damage down to the duration of the Venom. Let me give you an example, shall we? So let's say, for instance, we had a poison damage charm. All right, so let me pull up my calculator here, because this is going to take some unfortunate math, which I'm terrible at, but we're still going to do it anyway, because, you know, why not? So here's my calculator. Pull this up on the screen here, and we're going to run some calculations. All right, so let's assume we have a charm that has 240 poison damage over 10 seconds, right? 10 seconds is a rather long period of time, especially when you consider that 240 poison damage over 10 seconds isn't really that much damage per second. If we divide out 240 by 10, we will end up with 24 damage a second, which is not really a lot. But Venom is 0.4 seconds. It's even less than the duration of the duration of 1 second. So we have to take this 240 poison damage over 10 seconds, and we need to divide it by, instead of 10, we need to divide it by 100. And you might be asking, well, why are we dividing it by 100? Because we need to break it up into individual decimal points, not seconds. We need to break it up into 0.1 second intervals. This is the easiest way to do this kind of thing, and we will have 240 divided by 100 equals 2.4 damage per second, per 0.1 of a second. So a tenth of a second, rather. Then we're going to multiply this by 4, which is going to get us 9.6 damage. So the 240 poison damage small charm is only going to add 9.6 damage to our Venom ability. This is the really strange thing about Venom, is that Venom caps everything at its 0.4 seconds. And that is kind of odd. However, I have made a mistake already. And you might be asking, well, what is that mistake? Well, the mistake is that Poison Dagger, which is the one ability in the game that does not interact with Venom the same way that other poison effects do. So Poison Dagger, which poisons over 11.6 seconds, the duration of the poison will be set to 12 seconds, so 11.6 plus 0.4. So we end up with an addition instead of a reduction. And the Venom will provide a total of 9,150 to 9,750 damage over that period of time. So what you have to understand is that just like in the scenario where the 240 poison damage charm was being forced into the category of the effect for Venom, Venom is being forced into the category for the Poison Dagger. So you have to take the numbers for the poison of Venom, and you have to actually add it to the dagger in much the same way that we just did the calculation for the Poison Small Charm, but in reverse. Now we have to do level 15 Venom, because the only way for a Necromancer to get Venom would be to use an item. Treachery is one such item that has a level 15 Poison Dagger, a level 15 Venom proc. So let's reset my character real quick, and let's bring up our Venom just to level 15, and that way we can get an idea of what our damage is. And we're going to run this calculation real quick. So we have 350 to... I was calculating in the plus the skills. My bad. There we go. So we have 305 to 325. All right. So let's run this on a calculator, shall we? All right. So here we go. We've got the calculator. Bink. Why is it not up on the screen? There we go. All right, so we have our 305 to 325 damage, right? Well, the thing here is that because it's over 0.4 seconds, we've got to divide this out and figure out what it would be over the full duration of the 12 seconds for Poison Dagger. All right, so we have to first get it to a second, which is the easiest way to do this, or at least that's the way I like to do it in my head, which is 325 divided by 4, which is going to give us our tenth of a second. And then we're going to multiply that by 10, which is going to give us the full second. So in a full second, Venom does 812 damage, 812.5. And then we have to multiply that by 12, which is going to get us our total number over 12 seconds. And as you can see, because of the way that Venom works, because of how short of a duration is, when you stretch out Venom over a longer duration, Venom does a larger amount of damage. But the problem with Venom is that it's only applied on hit and only for 0.4 seconds, which means that you would have to attack extremely fast to make Venom do the kind of damage that it can do when utilized with Poison Dagger. So having Venom on a Poison Dagger Necromancer is actually extremely good because it is going to add a rather large amount of poison damage to your effect. However, any other poison damage, as we just discovered, has to be reduced to the 0.4 seconds that Venom uses. Now, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. It's not decreasing the amount of poison damage that those of charms and items that you have dish out. What it is doing is it's normalizing it to that 0.4 seconds. It's the same exact amount of damage that it would normally do in 0.4 seconds. It's just only applying it for 0.4 seconds, which means that as a Venom assassin or a person who is utilizing Venom, you want to attack as quickly as humanly possible. It ceases to be about stab and run away like Poison Dagger, because Poison Dagger is over 12 seconds. So I don't want to stick around for 12 seconds. I'm going to stab you, I'm going to run away, and I'm going to let the poison tick down. However, because Venom only lasts 0.4 seconds, it's not about stab and run away, it's about hit as many times as you possibly can. Because every single time you swing, you're going to apply another 0.4 seconds, and every time you swing, you're going to apply another 0.4 seconds, and it's going to just rip down HP, because the 0.4 seconds is going to apply a massive amount of damage during that time frame. All poison damage that you have from any source is going to be added into Venom. So let's say, for instance, I was like rocking as many poison damage charms and poison damage items as I possibly could. So how big is the inventory? I mean, let's assume even that we take our Herodric Cube out, and the only thing we have in is a torch and an Annihilus charm. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times 4. So let's run these calculations real quick. So 8 times 4 plus 5 is a total of 37 possible locations for our poison damage charms. Let's assume that we have really nice poison damage charms. In fact, you know what? Let's look up a really nice poison damage charm real quick, just so that we're sure that we have a very nice one. I can never remember what the max is on poison damage charms. They're rather hard to come by in their highest form. And I do remember that back in the day, they used to be higher than others. In fact, if you guys remember what the highest amount was before they got nerfed, put that down in the comments, because I can't remember right off the top of my head what the highest number is now after they've gotten nerfed. But I have one here that's 313 poison damage over 11 seconds, and this is in Diablo 2 Resurrected, so I'm going to use this one. So let's assume we have 30, what was it again? 37. So let's assume we have 37 small charms, so toxic small charm of Anthrax. So 313 times 37 is a total of 11,581 poison damage, right? But it's over 11 seconds, which is not what we need. So let's find the second value. So divide by 11 seconds, which gives us 1,052 damage per second. All right. Then we need to find the 10th of a second value, which is going to require us to divide this by, 10 again, I believe. We have to divide this by another 10. All right, so we're going to divide this by 10, which is going to get us the second value, or the tenth of a second value, which is 105. We're going to multiply that by 4, and we're going to round it. We might as well just round it. So 421 is how much would get added to our venom. And our venom is currently at max. Let's check that real quick. At level 22, we are looking at 495. So we would add 495 to this. And we would be dishing out about 916 poison damage every 0.4 seconds. Now, don't be too dismayed by this, because if we can attack relatively fast, we might attack, 2 or 3 times in a certain period of time. And that's kind of the weird thing about Venom, especially when you're dealing with a dual claw assassin who is hitting multiple times, or maybe you have an extremely fast kick setup and you are kicking multiple times. You can potentially kick multiple times per second, and you could dish out some pretty nice damage. But let's, for instance, multiply this out by... let's see here. Let's figure out what this would be over 11 seconds, for instance, over our original value. So we would divide this by I think it's 0.4. God, these my math skills are not up to par when it comes to this kind of stuff. But we could very easily multiply this out. Trying to think here. Let's actually remove some of these large numbers off the side here. So just round it to 916. So 916 times Mr. Nice. I tried to do math here, Mr. Nice. 916. I don't know. I find it easier, instead of multiplying it, just to divide it out and get the individual numbers, because it just makes a lot more sense to me that way. So if we divide it by 4, we should end up with the 229 value, which is the 10th of a second, and then we can multiply that out by 10, which will get us the full second value, which is 2,290 over 1 second, and then times 11, which will get us to the damage of the charms, which is 25,190. And I don't know why I just didn't do it that way in the first place. I was trying to go some fancy route, and it just didn't work out very well for me. But as you can see, 25,190 over 11 seconds is certainly a lot more interesting of a number than 916 over 0.4. And this is the kind of odd thing that comes about with Venom, and why Venom doesn't really look as attractive as it actually is, because of course Venom does in fact have some oddities to it here in the way that it applies damage. And it's not without, cause, because as far as I'm concerned, when you're looking at something like this and you see that low number, you don't think in your head that poison damage is quick. You don't think poison damage procs relatively fast. All you think of is that's a low number, and that doesn't seem very high or very useful. Now, what could Venom potentially be useful for? Well, Venom can be useful in whirlwind builds. It can be useful in kick builds. It can be useful in all sorts of builds where you might necessarily want some extra damage. And poison, of course, also will prevent regeneration. But the problem with Venom is that poison does not prevent regeneration unless it is ticking. So basically how it works is there are individual frames. The game has, for instance, 25 frames, and 25 frames, each individual frame, something can tick. Either a regeneration can tick or a poison can tick. However, Venom doesn't have a long duration, which means that, yes, Venom will cause regeneration not to be in effect when Venom is active on a target, but because Venom is only active on a target for 0.4 seconds, you are more often than not going to prevent regeneration. Because the second that Venom runs out, which is literally 0.5 seconds later, they are able to regenerate. For every single frame that regeneration is not or that the poison is not consuming those frames. The easiest way to look at this is that when you are in combat and you are fighting a monster, the monster will turn green. If the monster is green, then every frame of the regeneration is being consumed by poison. If the monster is not green, then that means that every frame is not being consumed by the poison and they can still regenerate. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we are talking about a venomous skill that apparently Mr. NiNi hates because he doesn't want to sit still today. And as always, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at a rather odd mace known as Moonfall. Moonfall is kind of an oddity. It seems to be kind of designed around a sorceress, but at the same time, maybe not. It is a Jagged Star, which means it is an exceptional level item. It is level 42 requirement, which means that you are kind of gonna have to find this around the beginning of Nightmare difficulty. It's a strength requirement of only 74, which is not too bad, and has a relatively high durability of 72, which does mean that it will be relatively nice for maybe a Zealer or a Frenzy Barbarian, somebody who might not necessarily want their weapon to break all the time. We have a 5% chance to cast level 6 Meteor on striking, which is a relatively low percent chance. It is a chance to cast ability, and it can actually receive synergy bonuses. So if you did have Max Fire Mastery, if you did have three synergies for Meteor, which are Firebolt, Fireball, and Inferno, you would actually be able to beef up the level 6 Meteor on this particular item. The problem is that at level 6, it's relatively low damage. Meteor at level 6 only does about 214 to 247 fire damage on impact, and it does 84 to 107 fire damage over a couple seconds. Now, if you had maximum synergies, you would be dropping meteors pretty regularly with a 5% chance, but it's not going to be so massive that you're going to see them like 10 or 12 meteors on a target. It's probably going to be like maybe 1 or 2 meteors per kill or something like that, depending on how fast you kill the targets, which is kind of not the greatest. Now, Moonfall also has some other interesting abilities on it. It does have 150% enhanced damage, which does make it relatively nice physically for a level 42 character with 60 to 92 damage. And it does vary from 120 to 150%, so it varies by 30%, which isn't a huge variable. We also get an added 10 to 15 damage, which is just added straight on top. And then we also get a 55 to 115 fire damage added in there too. And as you can see, there's a lot of fire damage going on here. We've got the meteor fire damage. The meteor has the burn attached to it. We've got the fire damage added to the weapon. And it also has some meteor charges as well. We also have the magic damage reduced by 11, which is a pretty large amount of magic damage reduced by. That means that any magic damage that comes in will get reduced by 11 damage straight off the top. So, like, for instance, if somebody hit us with a 100, fire damage ability, a fireball or something, we would just take 11 damage right off the 100, and then it would come in as a lot less. This works really well for low damage attacks. I've noticed that, like, if somebody hits you with a fire bolt that only does like 20 damage anyway, 11 damage off of 20, it means there's only 9 left, and usually resistances and stuff, and it can take care of a lot of the other values, especially if you have any kind of absorption. We also have +2 to light radius, which is negligible. Level 11 meteor charges, 60 of them, which is a lot of level 11 meteor charges. And let's quickly look at what level 11 meteor does. So level 11 meteor is 393 to 437 fire damage, which is better, and 138 to 164 fire damage per second. So if you were a non-sorceress and you were to use this, that's how much damage you would get. If you were a sorceress, you would get synergy bonuses. So if you had Fire Mastery or any of those other abilities, it could definitely come in handy with this. On top of this, we also get 50% enhanced damage to undead, which is a off-weapon ED and is not to be confused with the on-weapon ED. They're two completely different variables. On-weapon ED is very, very effective, and off-weapon ED is much less effective. So don't confuse the two together. Now, the ethereal version also is very nice at 85 to 130, but unfortunately, there's really nobody that can use the ethereal version because the ethereal version is, of course, a mace class, and there's no mercenaries that could use a mace class item. Which means that if you wanted to use this, you'd probably have to put a Zod rune in it, just in general. Now, there are some other kind of odd alternatives. You could potentially use this on maybe like a Blade Fury assassin for a little while, just simply to get the meteor procs. Blade Fury can proc on striking, but it cannot proc on attack. So you could get meteors with your Blade Fury. The fire damage would also translate through, and the Blade Fury ability does not burn durability. So you could potentially use this on a Blade Fury assassin with at level 42. It could be interesting. There may be better choices than this, but it's an option. Now we can upgrade this to the elite form, and I'd like to do that real quick just to see kind of what kind of damage this would get. It is of course going to go to a Devil Star, which is the elite version. And if we're going to do the normal version first, the non-ethereal version, and you're going to need a Pole Rune, you're going to need a Lum Rune, and you're going to need a Perfect Emerald to do this. This is going to go from 60 to 92, 74 Strength, level 42, to 117 to 147, 44 Dexterity requirement, 153 Strength, and level 59. At level 59, that's actually not too bad. I'm not, like, too terribly impressed, but I'm also not, like, very, very, dissatisfied with that upgrade. It's okay. Level 59 is low enough that this could actually still be viable for a little while for you if you didn't happen to have anything better. Unfortunately, the level 6 meteor is probably going to be a lot less effective at level 59 than it was at level 42. And just in general, it's going to be waning off as you level up your character. You're probably going to want to replace this relatively quickly once you get to like level 60, 70, 80, obviously. I mean, these weapons don't really tend to last you very long, so I would keep that in mind. Now, we can also upgrade the ethereal version, which is going to get a nicer damage bump. So we're going to go from 85 to 130, 64 strength requirement, level 42, to 170 to 212, 34 dex, 143 strength, and level 59. Not really too sure about this particular weapon, especially upgrading it to the elite form. A Pull and a Lum Rune is kind of expensive for an upgrade that doesn't really seem to be that worth it. I feel like this item seems to be more centered around almost an enchant sorceress. I almost feel like an enchant sorceress could get a lot of fun out of this. Like build an enchant sorceress, upgrade it, turn into a bear maybe with a beast or something, and then just wail on targets with with your high level enchant, synergies and meteor, have meteors coming out everywhere. I mean, fully synergized level 6 meteor could do decent damage. You know what? Let's run those numbers real quick, because why not? This is a video about this item. I feel like running those numbers is probably a good idea. So if we take a look at our skill tree, we can reliably see how much damage we're getting. So we're getting 5% for Firebolt and 5% for Fireball. So we're getting a total of 5% fire damage per level for each skill times 20. So 5 plus 5 is 10 times 20. So 10 times 20 is a 200% increase. And then we also get, let's see here, Inferno damage. So, we could probably just do this on the character. Let's do it on the character, shall we? So, let's go ahead and reset our character real quick. Let's go down to Meteor. All right, and then we're going to level up Meteor to level 6. There we go. We've got level 6 meteor. And then we're going to get hard points into fire mastery, because we would probably also be leveling up fire mastery to max if we were enchant sorceress. We're going to level up firebolt and fireball to maximum. And at level 6, we are looking at 1,702 to 1,964 damage per hit. Also with an average fire damage of 245 to 313 per second. That's actually not terrible. It's a 5% chance to cast, though, which is relatively low. But let's go play around with it, and let's see kind of like what kind of damage we could somehow get out of this. So we're going to obviously have to build up our strength high enough so that we can utilize this, as well as our dex. I was looking at the wrong stat. Let's go ahead and use this one. And then we're going to go ahead and put in the rest of our points into vitality, just so we don't die. It would be nice if we had a shield laying around. And I do not have a shield laying around. Look at me. Smart. Now, sorceresses, unfortunately, don't have a lot of abilities that will increase their attack rating, but they do have enchant, which is definitely a nice one. And as you can see, when you enchant, the star goes into that nice horrible red figure. You get a huge amount of fire damage added to your attack, and of course you can also utilize that fire damage in various ways. You could fire a bow, you could use like guided arrow from a Widowmaker, or you could just simply attack things, or you could become a bear. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you could utilize something like this. This is unfortunately normal difficulty because this character was never actually enabled to go to hell. But I would like to see if I could get the meteor to proc at least one time, just for the fun of it. And of course my mercenaries over here murdering everything. How dare you? How dare you? Unfortunately, I do feel like 5% is just a little low to actually build a character around this effect. There are other items in the game, though, that do have meteor procs on them, and you could potentially have multiple meteor procs coming from multiple different items. The only downside I see to this is that there is a delay on meteor. And the delay on meteor is going to trigger even with the chance to cast ability. And I don't know if a lot of people actually know that about meteor, but it does actually proc with chance to cast abilities. So you won't be able to cast it in really, really fast succession, even if you had multiple items with meteor procs, just simply because the delay on meteor, which is a relatively long delay, essentially precludes that. And at some point or another, you have to ask yourself, would it just be better if I was just casting the spell myself? Because, well, you know, that would definitely be a little bit better than just simply... Man, Mr. NiNi's always messing up my shirt. I just looked at the camera and I'm like, dang, my shirt's all disheveled. Disheveled. That's what I would call it. Disheveled. I mean, as you can see, we've already killed several monsters here, and I haven't gotten one meteor proc the entire time. And this is something that you're probably going to notice if you use this weapon, is that, oh, there we go. There's our first meteor proc in the entire time. So as you can see, the meteor hits, we get the nice fire damage, and then it's gone. And it's not exactly something that you could, like, build a character around. Unlike a lot of other items, like Windhammer Ogre Maul, which has 25% chance, or... you know, there's quite a few items in the game that have relatively high % chances of items. Like I just recently went over the Earth Shifter Thunderball, which has a, I think it's a 25% chance of fissure. All very interesting ways that you could potentially build a character, but it's just not something that I think would actually work out very nicely, considering that I could just literally just cast the spell. But just out of curiosity, if we were to somehow maybe build a meteor spamming sorceress who, I don't know how exactly I would do this, but let's theory craft for a second, shall we? So we're going to go to Amazon Basin and we're going to look up the meteor skill. Amazon Basin is a website that has all of the items listed that can potentially spawn meteors. So we have chance to cast on quite a few different items. The Hellmouth War Gauntlets have a level 4 at 2% chance, which is not very high. Sky Strike Edge Bow has a level 6 at 2% chance. Moonfall Jagged Star has the level 6 at 5% chance. We also have a level 19 with a 2% chance when struck on the Rising Sun, which could be interesting if you were a melee sorceress. I would probably use that. We also have the Rainbow Facet and Destruction Weapon and the Hand of Justice all have when you die effects, which are not going to be very handy. So it does look like there are a couple choices, like maybe you could use the Rising Sun Amulet, the Hellmouth War Gauntlets, and the Moonfall Jagged Star all together. And you would have a total of 3 meteor procs from 3 different items at various levels, which would do their own particular amounts of damage. Not entirely sure that would actually be worth it, but it could be a fun thing to try out just because. Lastly, let's go over where you could potentially find this item if you wanted to find it. So let's go over to Silo's Pen, which is a pretty good place to look up drop chances. And they're going to have to update this website. I wonder if they will, because with 2.4, we've got a lot more new level 85 zones, which won't be on this list. So Moonfall. There's Moonfall right there. And we're going to pretend that we have about 100% Magic Find because we're a level 40 some odd character, so probably not too great at that particular point. We do have the Secret Cow level in Nightmare at 1 in 2,920 on the Cow King. Not a lot of really good options here, especially for somebody who's just entering Nightmare difficulty. A lot of really poopy options, actually. Trying to see if there's anybody in here that would actually be killable in Act 1 or Act 2 when a character would be around the level that would actually want to use this. And Dark Elder, no, that's Hell difficulty, so that doesn't do us any good. Let's take a look at bosses real quick, and we'll check the bosses. So we've got Hell. Bale in normal difficulty can potentially drop this from a quest as well as normally. That seems like the best option, because in normal difficulty, you're probably around level like 30 to 40 as you're leaving normal difficulty. And 1 in 1,354 chance is actually pretty good for this particular item. In normal difficulty as well, that's absolutely great, because that's where you would want to find this, is normal. And let's see what else we've got here. Not a lot of good options other than that. It does look like Bale in normal difficulty is the main monster that you probably want to farm to try and find this on level. You know, like as you're going into Nightmare difficulty, wielding this in your hand, that would be your best bet. Of course, best probability at all is Nightmare Mephisto on a quest, and non-quest is Nightmare Mephisto non-quest. Of course, by the time you get to Nightmare Mephisto, you're usually a lot higher than level 42, so I'd keep that in mind. I would probably try to get this in normal before I got to Nightmare so that it would actually be useful while I was going through Nightmare. But if you were just farming this specifically to just find it, it does look like Nightmare Mephisto is your best bet. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I am the moon falling from the heavens. That's a cheesy joke. Anyway, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be looking at another Amazon ability. I'm on an Amazon kick today, and where this Amazon ability is the Amazon ability Decoy. So Decoy is a rather interesting ability that does have quite a lot of good uses. If you are an Amazon of any type, having an extra body in the battlefield can be extremely useful to draw attention from yourself. If I'm going into the middle of a fight and I can summon forth a decoy, that decoy can do a very good job taking the attention away from me. As you can see, they will attack the decoy, and the decoy will essentially just stand there until either he or she runs out of HP, or I manage to kill all the surrounding monsters. The decoy also has the abilities that you do. So believe it or not, the decoy can in fact dodge and avoid attacks. Of course, the decoy cannot evade attacks because the decoy does not move. Evade only works when you are moving, and the decoy does not, of course, move. But they do get the effect of your dodge and your avoid. They also have your hit point pool. So whatever your hit point pool is, they have that. And then on top of that, they also get an increase in the amount of life that they have based on what level you have them. So for instance, mine at level 22 right now has a 220% bonus to his or to her life. That life is, of course, my life plus the 220% bonus, which is pretty sweet. We also have some other things to calculate here, which is the resistances. So the decoy does have resistances, and it is based on the decoy's level. It is essentially the level times 4 capped at 85. So at level 22, for instance, if we were to multiply that out, level 22 times 4, so 22 times 4, we would end up with 88%. So at level 22, the decoy does have the cap of 85%. So we already have some very nice defensive capability for our decoy to keep her alive. She's got lots of health. She's got our health. She has more health on top of that. She also has 85% to resistances at level 22, and she's also providing a synergy bonus to the Valkyrie, which is also very, very handy. The decoy can come in super handy for scouting zones. It's one of the things that I've always liked about the decoy is that if you are in a zone, you can cast the decoy into the zone and see what's going on in that zone without actually getting in there yourself. You can throw your decoy over and over again as you please. And in general, the decoy can just be super, super useful. She doesn't really even cost that much mana. It's only 3.2 mana cast per cost. So, of course, you can cast her as many times as you need to. She can also come in super handy along with the Valkyrie. So if you have your Valkyrie out and you'd like to keep your Valkyrie alive, maybe your Valkyrie is not doing as well as you would like, throwing out an extra body can be extremely handy. And think about it like this. If you are a melee Zon or a range Zon, it doesn't really matter what kind of Amazon you are, having an additional body in the battlefield can be extremely useful to help keep everything alive and everything going. Just like a necromancer who has an entire army of skeletons, his mercenary tends to stay alive relatively easily because, of course, the mercenary doesn't have to deal with everything on his own. And the same goes for the Amazon and her Valkyrie, her decoy, and her mercenary. This way, the Amazon has a total of 1, herself, 2, the Valkyrie, 3, the decoy, and 4, her mercenary. So she has a total of 4 bodies on the battlefield at any given time. And if the Valkyrie wants to use the stone armor, which is actually not a bad armor, she could also get a 5th. She could use the clay golem at the same time. And she could have a relatively nice little army of 5 different creatures, including herself, of course. And this means that when she's in the middle of a battle, the monsters have to spread out their damage over 5 targets instead of just simply 1. And when you have the ability to spread your damage out like this so that multiple targets can absorb this damage, it means that you are going to stay alive a lot easier. So definitely consider that. Another little oddity about decoy with particular skills is actually strafe. So for some reason or another, strafe actually fires more arrows if you have the decoy out. This is something that most people probably won't know, but basically, while the decoy is on the battlefield, strafe will fire 1 additional arrow, essentially treating decoy as if it were a monster, which is kind of silly. There's really not a lot more to go over when it comes to decoy. I feel like we've covered just about everything. The use of it as a scout device, the ability to obviously split damage in between targets, keeping your mercenary alive, keeping your Valkyrie alive, keeping you alive. All of this comes in very handy, and of course, decoy makes its way into a lot of builds for this reason. If you are an Amazon who does not use decoy on a regular basis, I would recommend that you do, because it is just extremely easy to use as a distraction force. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the River of Flame or the Secret Cow level. If you're running along and you cast yourself a decoy in the middle of a bunch of monsters, you will definitely notice a difference in your survivability. Using it as a scout, by the way, in this particular way, can be very effective to know what's up ahead. Like, for instance, I just found out there's a giant army of pit lords up here, and I won't have to worry about as many of them because now my decoy is taking a little bit of that brunt off of me. But the decoy did eventually die. I can recast her, and I can continue on. Now, do keep in mind that, of course, any AoE effects are still going to hit you anyway. So, for instance, if I cast my decoy in the middle of a bunch of monsters, and those monsters are utilizing an AoE damage effect, and the AoE damage effect is going through my decoy and hitting me anyway, you know, like Nova, Frost Nova, Lightning. There are quite a few different evil abilities that could potentially be very ouchy. One in particular, which is very easy to get hit by, is of course the gloams. As you can see, the gloams love to hit my decoy as well. And this is one of the things that I do love about having the decoy, is that in situations like this, where you are scouting out new locations, it's very, very handy to have a decoy to be able to cast off into the distance to see if there are lightning monsters or gloams or what kind of monsters there are ahead in the dungeons in front of you, so that you don't have to find out with your face. It's definitely not fun to find out with your face. And there you go. I managed to find some gloams without having to immediately die to them, which is kind of the overall goal, right? Please don't kill me, gloams. That is the correct way of stating it. Please don't kill me, gloam-san. Anyway, as always, I do hope that you enjoyed this episode on decoy. It probably wasn't one of the longer skills and ability episodes, but I do feel like I've gone over quite a bit in the 8 minutes that I've been talking so far. Decoy is just an amazing ability. It is also a very nice passive for the Valkyrie, because if you notice, it does actually increase the life of the Valkyrie every time you put points into decoy. So not only would you be increasing the decoy's life itself by increasing decoy, you also increase the effectiveness and usefulness of your Valkyrie in the process. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my video, even when I have decoyed you away from the game. And as always, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at the Blink Bat's form. That's right, you probably never even heard of the dang thing. The Blink Bat's form is a unique leather armor. Blink Bat's form is kind of an odd one, and if you do happen to find one, it could be a fun one to hang on to. And as we go over it, I will definitely talk about the unique effects that it has. So Blink Bat's form is a interesting armor. As you can see, it is a red armor. It's not like amazing though, because it is a leather armor, and leather armor tends to have very little in the far way of armor graphical changes. Blink Bat's armor is a leather armor. It is unique. It is defense level 39. Level 39. Wow. Mr. NiNi, did you hear me say them stupid numbers? He did. It's defense 39. It has a durability of 24, level requirement of only level 12, and it is a strength requirement of 15. This particular item has a relatively low level and a relatively low strength requirement, which means it can be used on just about anybody. It has 10% faster run walk on it, which is always nice to have early on, especially since getting a hold of a good pair of faster run walk boots can sometimes be a pain in the butt. It has 40% faster hit recovery, which is just absolutely amazing, and may actually make this a very, very good choice for a low-level sorceress who is one of the worst characters as far as hit recovery goes. So if you were a low-level sorceress, maybe you'd like to get your hands on a Blinkbat's form just so you can survive those early levels before you end up getting yourself a decent amount of faster hit recovery. This can also be relatively useful on a mercenary because mercenaries tend to have absolutely terrible faster hit recovery too. Believe it or not, the only character in the game besides sorceress that is worse on faster hit recovery is the Act 2 mercenary, if I remember correctly, or they're tied. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I know they're both awful. So 40% faster hit recovery can be useful on a lot of characters. If you're wondering how this works, basically faster hit recovery governs how fast you recover from a faster hit recovery stun. So basically, if you had a monster hit you, the monster would check to see if he could faster hit recovery stun you. The faster hit recovery stun has a different probability depending on how much damage he did in relation to your hit point pool. So for instance, if you had 100 health and a monster hit you for 50, that would be 50% of your health, and that would be a rather large percent chance of dealing a faster hit recovery stun. And this is another reason why low-level sorceresses have so much trouble with faster hit recovery, because they have relatively low health, and they also have relatively bad faster hit recovery animation speed. So they tend to get faster hit recovered a lot, and then when they get faster hit recovered, they also tend to be very slow in recovering from those faster hit recovery stuns. And the less damage they do in relation to your hit point pool, the less chance you will be faster hit recovery stunned. For instance, if I had 5,000 hit points, if I was like a bear druid with max lycanthropy, I would have a huge amount of HP. I could have, the Oak Sage. I could have maybe like a CTA on my offhand or whatever, and I could just be massive HP. And if somebody did 1,000 damage to me with 5,000 HP, that is a relatively low variable to my HP. Now, if somebody only had 1,500 HP, 1,000 damage is a lot to them. And this is how faster recovery works, is the more HP you have, the less chance you will be faster at recovery stunned. And when you are faster at recovery stunned, you have to go through an animation, and that animation, of course, is governed by your faster hit recovery percentage. We also have adds 3 to 6 fire damage, with at level 12 could actually be useful, but once you get past, like level 20, 3 to 6 fire damage is nothing. We also have 25 defense, which is definitely nice to have on here, but it has no percentage increase, which means we're probably going to have poor upgrades. We have plus 50 missile defense, which, believe it or not, at level 12 is actually really darn useful, because when you get into the sewers and those stupid fire archers are trying to melt your face off, that 50 defense versus missile will save your life. We also have an ethereal version of this, which you can also find with 46 defense. And this one could be more useful for a mercenary. You probably wouldn't want to use this on your character. But if you were just leveling up and you didn't really care, you could just let it break. And by the time you end up breaking it, you probably would end up with something better anyway. Maybe a stealth armor or something like that you've crafted yourself. But do keep in mind that stealth is level 17 and Blinkbat's form is level 12, which means for, 5, 6, 7? So for 5 levels, you could be utilizing this piece of armor instead. And, just like a stealth armor gives faster recovery and faster cast, as well as faster run walk. So it's almost like this is like a little baby stealth before you get to stealth. We can upgrade this, and we're going to upgrade this today. So let's go ahead and see what kind of upgrades we get on Blinkbat's form. Blinkbat's form normal version is Shale Tal and Perfect Diamond, which is going to go from 39 defense, 15 strength requirement, and level 12 to 149 defense, 43 strength requirement, and level 29. Not a bad upgrade if you had this item and you didn't have anything else. I could see utilizing this for the 40% faster recovery. The defense isn't too bad at level 29. I would hope that by the time you get further into Nightmare difficulty around level 40, you've probably got something better by then. But this could be a halfway decent upgrade for a solo self-found character. We also have Blinkbat's form, leather armor, in the ethereal, which also requires a shale, a talon, a perfect diamond. And that's going to go from 46 defense, 5 strength at level 12, to 199 defense, 33 strength at level 29. So a little bit better in terms of like maybe for a mercenary or something like that. Could definitely be useful on a mercenary just to get him the faster recovery that he needs to survive. If you're ever wondering, how you keep your mercenary alive, maybe your mercenary dies all the time. You need to focus on getting him decent defense so he's not getting hit. You need to focus on getting him a good amount of faster hit recovery so that when he is getting hit, he's not getting locked in faster hit recovery stuns. And a little bit more HP doesn't hurt either because obviously it helps him have less faster recovery stuns in general. All three of those things together usually end up helping you get a nicer, more tanky mercenary. Now, of course, we can upgrade this one more time, but I don't really think this is going to be worth it. But we're going to check it anyway, because why not? So to do this, you're going to need a lem, a co, and a perfect diamond, and you're going to upgrade this from the serpent skin armor to the elite form. It's going to go from 149 defense, 43 strength requirement, level 29, to 485 defense, 84 strength requirement, level 62. Now, the defense didn't go up enough to warrant a level 62 requirement because it doesn't have any percent plus on it. That's the reason why the defense isn't going up enough. Blinkbat's form ethereal is going to go from 199, 33 strength, level 29, to 640 defense, 74 strength, level 62. So as you can see, not really the best upgrade for the third tier, a halfway decent upgrade for the second tier, but honestly I think this is an item that probably should be left at the lower level where it belongs. Let's take a look relatively quickly though at Silo's Pen, and let's see where we could potentially find this item if we wanted to look for a Blinkbat's form. It's a level 12 item, so we're not going to assume very much Magic Find. We're actually going to put 0. We are going to search for Blinkbat's form here, which should be right. There it is. Bink. All right, and we're going to restrict this to normal difficulty because if we're looking for this item, we're probably looking for this item in normal difficulty. Level 12 is Act 1, by the way, so you haven't even left Act 1 normal, and that's really kind of the funny thing about this armor is it tends to only drop in Act 1 normal or normal difficulty anyway. So we've got a lot of bosses here, but nothing really too great. Duriel in normal can drop this, but a pretty awful chance at 128,235. I mean, that's just absolute garbage. Not a lot of good probabilities here. Even Quest Mephisto in normal is 1 in 9,518. Awful, awful. That's probably why we never see this item all the time. Let's check Super Unique. Super Uniques might have a better chance here. The Cow King in normal difficulty, 1 in 815. Of course, that is not something that you would be able to farm at level 12. That is way outside of your reach, but it is something that that is a very good probability if you wanted to get your hands on a Blinkbat form. Bone Ash in the Cathedral has a 1 in 11,373 chance. Let's apply a little bit of Magic Find to this scenario. So let's say 50% Magic Find. And our chances are going down quite nicely with a little bit of Magic Find added into the equation. So 1 in 8,067 from Bone Ash. So Bone Ash is actually a relatively easy monster to farm. He is in the Cathedral. He is always in the Cathedral. You can always find him right by the altar. Let me go and show you real quickly, because why not? It looks like to me that's probably your best chance for this particular monster or this particular item. If you really wanted to try and get your hands on a Blinkbat's form, that's actually the right level too. Bone Ash is right around the right level for a level 12 character to get your hands on this. You would probably be level 12 by the time you reached Bone Ash. And this is Bone Ash right here. As you can see, he's always fire and cold immune. Cold immune. He's always cold immune. He's not always fire immune. He does... what's the term? He's always there, and he's always very easy to farm. I would definitely say that if you were looking for a Blinkbat's form, that might be your best chance, because you'd be able to farm him repeatedly, over and over and over again, really quickly in normal difficulty. with relative ease, and you get some pretty good EXP while you were doing it. You'd probably end up getting to level 12 or 14 while you were farming him. 1 in 8,067 chance isn't really the best chance. If we were to bump that up, like say we were a high-level character who was looking for this particular item, it does go up very nicely to 1 in 4,496, and Cow King goes to 1 in 322 in normal difficulty. So interesting there. If we look at all monsters, though, as far as probability goes, Bone Ash is still the better choice. So do keep that in mind. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're talking about a really rare leather armor, which you probably may have never found, by the way. Blink Bat's form. And as always, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be talking about a rather infamous ability, several abilities actually, for the Amazon called Dodge, Avoid, and Evade. Now, recently in patch 2.4 public test realm, we got a notification, essentially, that these abilities were going to be fixed. For the longest time, Dodge, Avoid, and Evade could more often than not get you killed, despite the fact that they were intended to do otherwise. And you might be asking yourself, well, how could the ability get you killed? Well, when you do a Dodge animation, your character has to complete the dodge animation before he or she is allowed to do anything else. And if you were in the action of doing something else, there is a very good chance that the dodge animation would completely override that, preventing you from attacking, preventing you from running away, preventing you from doing a lot of things that you kind of needed to do. And in many such situations, you would turn to run away, and you would get stuck in an evade loop. There were also a lot of bugs earlier on in the game. I don't know if some of you older players remember these, but there was one in particular with Diablo, when literally Diablo would use his lightning inferno on you, and you would get stuck in an evade loop, essentially, because each individual hit of the effect was considered a missile attack, and the missile attacks would get dodged, and you would get stuck in a loop, eventually dying, because you could not move out of Diablo's Lightning Inferno. This was eventually patched out so that you could not avoid that particular skill anymore, but they never fixed evade, dodge, and avoid so that didn't happen. Well, in the newest patch notes, we have this line. Dodge, the animation can now be interrupted and will no longer lock out the Amazon from performing other actions. Avoid, the animation can now be interrupted and will no longer lock out the Amazon from performing other actions. So now, Dodge and Avoid will no longer lock you out of other actions, and they will no longer interrupt other actions, which is absolutely excellent. Evade, on the other hand, was not mentioned. So evade is when you run away from a target. And it's important to note the differences between these abilities, despite the fact that they seem the same. Dodge is the chance to avoid a melee attack when standing still or attacking. Avoid is the ability to dodge a missile attack while standing still or attacking. Evade is the ability to dodge a melee or missile attack while walking or running. So these are three completely separate abilities that dodge a different ability or a different thing at different times, which means that if you are trying to dodge missile attacks specifically, Avoid is the one that you are looking at, but when you are moving, Avoid will do nothing. When you are moving, Dodge will do nothing. And when you are moving, the only ability that has any effect as far as what you dodge or evade is the Evade ability. So these are called, eloquently, the avoidances. So Amazon's avoidances. You can, of course, build all three of these, and all three of these have some rather nice percentages. The downside to the avoidances is that they tend to get very small increases past a certain level. At level 11, for instance, we are looking at a total of 49% chance, 57% chance, and 49% chance, right? But if we take this up another, like 10 levels to level 21, it is not going to increase very much more past that. Level 22 is only 57% chance for dodge. Level 22 is only 66% chance for avoid, where we were at 57% chance with level 11. So for, literally 12 levels, we really didn't get that much higher than we were before. And this is the hard drop-off that the avoidances have in terms of their usability. So they do get a huge diminishing effect as you level them up, so that they provide you with a less and less good percentage. That is a terrible English, by the way. But there are certain levels where they do not go up at all. And let me show you this really quickly. So let's take dodge, for instance. You'll notice that there is a certain point at which it will not go up at all for 1 point investment. Right here at level 13, we have level 52% chance, and then the next level is also 52% chance. So, we are looking at no increases at certain levels whatsoever. Here we are with 54% chance, and it's telling us the next level is going to be, again, 54% chance. This makes it so that a lot of people decide not to invest a large number of points in the avoidances. What they usually do is they calculate out their plus to skills, and they will make it so that their plus to skills will bring it up to a decent level without having to worry too much about actually sinking any points into them. Now, there are specific characters that do build these to maximum, and those are usually called passive Zons. Passive Zons are a completely different kind of build, and usually not what you will see on a bow and crossbow Zon or a javelin and spear Zon. Passive Zons are a fun thing that you can do other than a regular Amazon. But if you have all of your avoidances maxed and you take your Amazon into combat, you will notice that for the most part, you can avoid just about anything that comes your way. So let's take this character into battle right now. She has level 22 dodge, level 22 evade, and avoid, and level 22 evade. And we're going to take her into a combat situation, and we're going to show you kind of how her character works in terms of keeping her alive for her avoidances. Now, this is on 2.4 Public Test Realm, and because this is on 2.4 Public Test Realm, the avoidance issues have been fixed. And what that means, basically, is that... ow, he bit me. Little bastard bit me. The avoidances have been fixed on this particular version of the game. So what you are going to see is how it's going to look in 2.4 on April 14th when it comes out, which is essentially the ability to, dodge, avoid, and evade much better than ever before. And for this reason, let's go with a fend build. Why not? That way we can attack while we are in here having a little bit of fun with this. And as you can see, relatively easily, I can avoid most of the abilities that these monsters put out. And I can attack in return. This is one of the biggest issues that always existed with Fend, Impale, and Jab Amazons, is that you didn't really have any necessarily high amount of defensive capability. And then on top of that, the one defensive ability that you did have didn't work in combat and prevented you from being able to attack back. But as you can see here, I can attack relatively easily and also dodge the majority of the abilities in the game. Now, it is also important to note that the avoidances don't just dodge melee and ranged abilities. I know that the ability here says, specifically, a chance to dodge a melee or a missile attack. And I know that this one says melee, or this one says missile. However, there are a lot of abilities in the game that are classified as missile attacks, despite the fact that they are not missile attacks. And these attacks can be dodged by the avoidances. If we take our character, for instance, somewhere where there are a large number of missile attacks, you will see what I mean. Anything that can be affected by slow missile can also be dodged by the Amazon. Take, for instance, the poison. You will notice that the poison is being affected by slow missile. The Inferno coming out of the Pit Lords is being infected by slow missile. There are a lot of things in the game that get affected by slow missiles, including lightning, charged bolts, all sorts of crazy things that you would not really even think are technically dodgeable, because you would not think that they are considered a missile attack, but they are. And if you ever are curious about whether something is a missile attack, you can always utilize slow missiles to try and figure out whether or not it is a missile attack or not. Missile attacks are kind of a broad term. And this is one of the reasons why I tell people that on-struck equipment is actually much better than you think. Like, for instance, the 20% chance to cast level 15 chilling armor when struck. And the reason is because there are a lot of effects in the game, a lot of spells in the game, which are considered missile attacks that will proc the effect, despite the fact that they are not missile attacks. Many abilities in the game go up against your defense, like a physical melee strike or a arrow which is coming at you, and these things will be blocked by your defensive capability. However, there are many effects in the game which do not get challenged by your defense and cannot be blocked by a shield, but are still considered a missile attack and can still proc things like chilling armor. The Amazon, however, utilizing her avoid, her dodge, and her evade, can in fact dodge and avoid a lot of these effects. Take, for instance, the Sorceress Spell Meteor. The Sorceress Spell Meteor can actually be dodged by the avoidances. However, the fire cannot. So, there are some things that you will have that will have a very nice effect. You will stay alive very well utilizing these abilities. Now, as I said before, in previous patches, the avoidances were kind of bugged and were more often than not going to get you killed. That is no longer the case. Dodge, avoid, and evade are actually very helpful to Amazons now, and I do foresee a lot of Amazons building dodge, avoid, and evade in the future. Another important thing about dodge, avoid, and evade is that they will beef up your Valkyrie. So if you do plan on getting a very nice Valkyrie, I would recommend that you build up your avoidances as well, because this will also, in effect, beef up your Valkyrie so that your Valkyrie can dodge, avoid, and evade better as well. Let's take her into somewhere like a Crystalline Passage, and you'll see what I mean. Because I have max dodge, avoid, and evade, she will also have max dodge, avoid, and evade. You see, I'm dodging Bone Spear. Now, it doesn't mean that you're immortal. Don't get me wrong. There are still attacks that are going to hit you, and they are obviously not 100% abilities. Obviously, dodge is only 57%, which means that for 43% of the time, you will still get struck. Avoid is only a 66% when it's maxed out at level 22. It actually does get a little bit higher than that, but I don't think by much. I think, like, let's that to be a fun thing to actually take a look at real quick. Let's take a look at how high they can go. So avoid at its highest level, at level 60, can go to 75% chance to dodge missile attack, which is not really at level 60. Level 75% is not really viable. I don't know a lot of characters who could get to level 60. But my passive Amazon that I have on live right now, I believe is capable of at least level 45, which means that she can get to 73% chance, which is certainly a very high number. 73% chance to dodge an incoming missile attack. And each one of them is different, of course. Dodge is melee, and dodge is probably a little different than avoidances. Let's take a quick look at Amazon Basin's dodge. So dodge at level 45 is 63%, which is really not much higher than the 57% that we have right now. So very diminished returns as far as dodge is concerned. And then evade is at 57%. So I'm going to assume, probably rightfully so, that evade is probably also going to have the same diminishing returns. So we're probably also going to be looking at 63% for evade at level 45. So not much of an increase there. Now, the really cool thing is that since they have fixed Impale, and since they have fixed the avoidances, and since they have fixed a lot of the abilities which have made melee Amazons quite unfortunately no good, they will now in 2.4 be viable again for the first time in a long time, which means that you will see characters building the dodge, avoid, and evade. You will see characters building Impale and Fend, and we will have a whole new resurgence of the melee Zon. And for those characters who are not melee Zons, for those characters who are going to be, lightning fury Amazons, which I'm sure will be eminently popular, bow and crossbow Zons, and maybe even a passive Zon, the avoidances will be a staple in their development. I don't see a lot of Amazons not putting points into evades now that they've been fixed, and quite honestly, just amazing abilities all around. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we are trying to avoid the subject. And as always, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at a unique Thunder Maul known as the Cranium Basher. The Cranium Basher is a very unique item, and as we go over it I think you'll understand what I mean. Right off the bat, you'll notice that it has really high damage of 132 to 632. Very, very high, and the spread is actually very high as well. We also have a huge strength requirement on this of 253, which is just absolutely massive. Most characters are not going to be able to bring the strength to bear to wield this particular item. We also have a level requirement that is through the roof. Level 87 on the level requirement is extremely high. I want you guys to understand that level 87 is endgame stuff, okay? That is ridiculously endgame stuff. Most characters are not going to be able to wield this for the majority of their Diablo 2 lives. And until they hit the end, finally, they will get to the point where they can possibly utilize this item. It is also indestructible, which means that it cannot spawn ethereal, so to keep that in mind. It will not break, but it also cannot get that nice ethereal damage bonus, which is sad. We do have a 4% chance to cast level 1 amplify damage on striking. Now, level 1 amplify damage is relatively low. It has a relatively small radius. It's only going to be like right around the monster that you attack, and it also doesn't last very long. It only lasts for about 8 seconds. And unfortunately, in Hell difficulty, the duration of curses is reduced by most monsters. So that 2-yard radius and the 8-second duration is actually going to be quite a detriment to the proc on this, especially considering that it's only 4% chance to cast. It doesn't last very long. It's going to last like hardly any time whatsoever. That 8 seconds is going to get cut down quite considerably in Hell difficulty. And then on top of that, it doesn't really hit very many targets because it has a relatively small radius. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's not quite as good as it should be. If I was a developer, I would probably bring up either one of two things. I would probably increase the percent chance to cast from 4% to a much higher number so that it was proccing more often. Or I would increase the level of the amplify damage and keep the chance to cast the same, because unfortunately level 1 amplify damage just doesn't really have the radius or the duration required to really be as useful as, maybe like a level 8 amplify damage, which could be much, much more useful because the radius would be larger, it would hit more monsters, and it would last for a longer period of time. The other downside to this is that if you were using this for a Whirlwind Druid, Whirlwind Druid. That would be fun, right? That would actually be pretty cool, Whirlwind Druid. Just like a werewolf just spinning claws. No. A werewolf barbarian. A druid barbarian. A werewolf barbarian. No. A whirlwind barbarian, my ladies and gentlemen. I'm keeping that in. I'm not even going to edit that out. Enjoy. If you were a whirlwind barbarian, I was doing a video on a druid just before this video, and that's why I'm just, an Earth Shifter, if you haven't checked it out, that video is going to be up too. Whirlwind barbarians cannot get chance to cast effects. So unfortunately, not only does the amplify damage on this not even really have that much usefulness because it's only a very short duration, a very small casting radius, but it also doesn't work on Whirlwind Barbarians, which are probably the only characters who are actually going to utilize this item. Very odd. And it's just kind of a sad effect. It's there. I mean, it'll do something. It will do something. Don't get me wrong. For the brief periods of time when amplified damage is on the target, it will do something. But it's not going to be as useful as you probably might think. 20% increased attack speed, of course, is very nice here because this is a relatively slow item. Thunder Mauls are very slow attack speed items, so that increase is very welcome. We also have 240% enhanced damage on this, which does vary by 40%, so it can go as low as 200% and as high as 240. We have 50% enhanced damage to Undead, which is off-weapon ED and is not to be confused with on-weapon ED. On-weapon ED is much more effective than off-weapon ED is. It has 20 to minimum damage, which is a very nice bump to the minimum damage. That actually brings it from, I think it's 119, which brings it up to 132. Minimum damage is absolutely great because it decreases the spread, whereas maximum damage increases the spread. Minimum damage will increase your average damage per second quite nicely, whereas max damage can sometimes have a sort of a negative effect because it increases the span in between the two numbers, and so you hit for very low numbers a lot, and you hit for very high numbers a lot, and sometimes you hit somewhere in the middle, and it kind of brings down your average, which is a little odd. But minimum damage is much more effective than maximum damage. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't like both of them, but minimum damage tends to be the superior one because it brings up your lower numbers, making sure that even your worst hits are relatively nice. We also have a massive, and I mean absolutely massive 75% chance of crushing blow. The highest you can go on Crushing Blow is 100%. And if you were to pair this up with something like Gore Riders, you would have already close to 100% Crushing Blow. 75% plus, 15% on Gore Riders? So you'd be looking at 90% Crushing Blow with just a pair of Gore Riders on. Absolutely massive. Now, what is Crushing Blow? Crushing Blow is the chance to deal 25% to the monster's current HP, not their maximum. 12.5% to bosses, and 10% in PvP, which means that you will have Crushing Blow going off all the time as you are wielding this item. Just about every single hit, without any additional Crushing Blow equipment, 75% chance is enough that the majority of your hits will have a Crushing Blow attached to them. Now, unfortunately, Crushing Blow does have diminishing effects. As the monster's HP gets lower, the damage that it does is less, obviously, because 25% of, a million is a lot, but 25% of 1,000 is not so much. And it's always going to be a percentage-based damage. But what this does is it means that when you are attacking with this particular item, you will bring down a monster's HP relatively quickly to low numbers, and then you have to finish them off with your own might. The weapon also has a bonus to strength, which is almost like a slap in the face, in my opinion, because if you have 253 strength to wield this item, you probably don't need more strength, but it's not exactly a terrible thing because strength does give 1% enhanced damage per point. So you get a nice 25% enhanced damage from that 25 strength. That is added, of course, on top of your off-weapon ED. since you already have 253 strength, that's 253% enhanced damage, and then you have another 25, which is going to add another 25% to your 253. Off-weapon ED is not super-duper effective, but it is nice to have, definitely. On top of that, we also have all resistances 25, which is definitely very nice because, of course, we are giving up our shield slot for this particular item, so it would be nice to have that extra resistance. Now, I'm going to take this out and I'm going to play around with it in Whirlwind, and we're gonna see how effective it is. Why not? So we might as well kill poor Eldritch over here. I'm always picking on Eldritch. What's up, my buddy? As you can see, I'm not getting any amp damage procs, and that's just simply because this particular item is not going to proc amp damage. Not in Whirlwind. But if I did use something like Concentrate instead, Concentrate would have a chance to proc the effect, and you would actually see the effect come on. Now, most of these monsters are dying relatively quickly, and this is hell difficulty. It is players 1, but not exactly a terrible amount of damage with this particular weapon. I mean, if we go use this on poor Shanky Poo here, you'll notice it does smack pretty hard. And the crushing blow is going to scale nicely with players 8 and things like that. It's definitely going to help you better in those particular areas because, of course, as the monster's HP increases, a percentage-based HP damage is going to be more useful than actual, like physical damage, because like I said earlier, 25% of a million is a very large number. 25% of 2 million is an even bigger number, and it doesn't matter how much HP the monster has, you're still dealing a very nice percentage-based damage to their HP, which is absolutely great. The Cranium Basher Thunderball is an odd one. What characters could you possibly use it on? Well, if you wanted to build a character around this item, which could be a fun thing to do, in my opinion, to build a character around the Cranium Basher, you could build it on a Druid. A Druid, I think, could get some decent use out of this with the high amount of Crushing Blow. They do also get an attack speed bonus for using two-handed weapons. And, I mean, it's definitely interesting. That's for sure. I do feel like there are better weapons in the game than this item. But 75% Crushing Blow is a freaking hell of a lot of Crushing Blow. The Amplified Damage proc could be better, in my opinion, but it's still going to be there, and it's still going to help you out. Even if it doesn't proc all the time, and even if it's not up for very long, when it is, it's going to double your damage during those durations. And as you can see, the damage on the weapon is already relatively high, and having the implied damage on there as a sort of an afterthought definitely means that you're going to be hitting some monsters like a freaking freight train. Now, the Cranium Basher Thunderwall may be hard for you to come by, and for that reason, we're going to go take a look, and we're going to see where we could potentially find this, and to do that, we're going to go over to Silo's Pen. Silo's Pen is a place where I like to look up these particular things. Now, the Cranium Basher is a Thunder Maul, and this does mean that it may be very difficult to get your hands on. Thunder Mauls are a relatively high-level item and only drop from particular monsters. And there you are, Cranium Basher. I'm going to bring this up on the camera here so you can see, follow along with me. So right here, right off the bat, you'll notice that Cranium Basher, and we also have, I'm going to put 400% Magic Find, because if we're looking for a Cranium Basher, which is level 87, by the way, there's a very good chance we are a high-level character, and we have a very high-level Magic Find character. And go to bosses, and you're going to notice that the list is just absolutely tiny. Bale is pretty much the only monster that has a decent chance to drop this. And it's not even a good chance. It's 1 in 19,779. So if you're farming Bale, first kill on the quest, you get 1 in 19,779. And then non-quest kills, 1 in 29,806. Terrible, terrible chances. Neelathak also has a very tiny chance of dropping this at 1 in 227,000, which is not good at all. For super uniques, the list is really, really tiny. As you can see here, we've got Frozenstein, Pindleskin, Snapchip, Shatter, And then we have the Throne of Destruction monsters, the Bale Waves, essentially, and again, Neolothag. Not very good options. If we take a look at unique monsters, there will be a rather large number of unique monsters, but with a rather poor probability. And these are probably going to be monsters that are generally in level 85 zones. From what I can tell here, looking at the list, it may not be all 85 zones, but it's pretty close to just about all 85 zones. So you're looking at mainly hell difficulty. You're looking at mainly level 85 zones. And in general, it's got to be a high-level zone like Pit Level 2, Pit Level 1, Throne of Destruction, Worldstone Keep, Maggot Layer Level 3, which is an 85 zone. We've got a lot of different zones in here that are pretty much all level 85 zones. If you'd like to look at a list of level 85 zones, there actually is a list online you can take a look at. I also have a video up of all of the new level 85 zones that are coming in 2.4, so you might want to check that out as well. It is going to be a relatively rare and hard item to find, and if you do find one, I mean, you've got something special. You've got a trophy item. Maybe it's not an item that you're ever going to use. Maybe you'll give it to your best friend who has a bear druid or something, and he's going to absolutely love it. But trust me when I say it's a rare item. It's hard to come by, and if you did come by one, hold on to it. It's a fun little trophy for you to to hold on to and be like, hey man, look at this freaking crazy thing I found, and everybody's like, whoa, 75% crushing blow. That thing's nuts. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I am bashing in craniums, and keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today I join you on my Valkazon. Her name is GGM Sapphire, and GGM Sapphire is a character who has built entirely into the passive and magic skill tree. She has absolutely no points in anything other than passive and magic skills. And you might be asking yourself, well, why would you do such a thing? Well, the answer is because I wanted to build the ultimate Valkyrie monstrosity. Yes, I'm not even joking. My Valkyrie is literally one of the strongest Valkyries that has ever existed. And to obtain this, I was able to create a character that literally has the highest level Valkyrie that you can possibly cast. I think I might be missing one or two items to get it just a teensy bit higher, but for the most part, I think I've got just about everything still. I am missing my Annihilist Charm, unfortunately, but as of right now, my Valkyrie is capable of being summoned at level 42. That would be level 43 with the Annihilist Charm. I do believe I'm missing one or two things. I'm missing my belt, which would be 44. And then I'm also missing, where's my gloves? I have +3 passive gloves, that's right. So that I can get another point higher. And I have a lot of equipment that is essentially used for no other reason other than to summon the highest level Valkyrie possible. And you might be asking yourself, well, why would I want to summon the highest level Valkyrie possible? What is the point of that in particular, of summoning the highest level Valkyrie possible? Well, she gets really, really strong. Now, I'm going to switch over to the original version of the game here real quick, because I'd like to actually summon her repeatedly. And you might be wondering, well, why in the hell would you summon her repeatedly? Why not just summon her once and be done with it? Well, the answer is that you can actually tell what equipment she is wearing by the color of her weapon, the color of her armor, and also the essentially kind of like the glow about her. So what I am looking for specifically what I would like her to have is extremely high damage. Now, to get her extremely high damage, I have to have specific colors on her equipment, and the easiest way to see that is in the original game. The newer game, it's a little bit more difficult to tell. And you might be asking yourself, well, what are these colors? What does it mean? What do you mean her equipment? What is changing? Well, I'm going to go over all of that today, and we're going to talk about it together. So at level 1, when you first summon your Valkyrie, the first thing that she is capable of getting is she spawns with a full plate mail and a spear. At level 2, she gains heavy gloves. At level 4, she gains heavy boots. At level 5, she gains a heavy belt. At level 7, she upgrades her full plate mail to a chaos armor. At level 8, she upgrades her spear to a lance, a rather nice upgrade. At level 10, she upgrades her heavy gauntlets to war gauntlets. Her heavy boots are upgraded at level 11 to war boots. Her heavy belt is upgraded to a war belt at level 12. At level 13, she gets an amulet. She did not have an amulet before. At level 14, she gains a circlet. That is her first helmet. At level 17, she replaces the Chaos Armor with a Sacred Armor. That is the highest defense armor in the game. At level 17, she replaces her lance with a pike, which is one of the biggest upgrades that the Valkyrie will get. This means that she will have a really, really strong war pike. The war pike is the highest damage elite version of the pike. At level 19, she upgrades her war gauntlets to Crusader gauntlets. At level 21, she upgrades her war boots to mirrored boots. At level 23, she upgrades her war belt to a Colossus girdle. And at level 25, she gets additional modifiers for her amulet from 4 to 6. And at level 27, she upgrades her circlet to a tiara and gains more modifiers on her tiara as well. A lot of these upgrades actually upgrade her abilities from normal items to magic, and then magic items to rare items. So at level 7, when she goes from a full plate mail to a chaos armor, that is the first time she obtains a rare armor. When she upgrades from the spear to a lance, her spear turns into a rare lance, and so forth and so on. So at level 27, she has a rare tiara. At level 25, she finally gets a rare amulet. At level 23, she finally gets a rare Colossus girdle. And at level 21, she finally gets a rare pair of mirrored boots, and so forth and so on. So as you can see, the higher level your Valkyrie is, the stronger her equipment is. But the problem is that her equipment is random. It doesn't matter how many times you summon her, her equipment is always going to be a random assortment of equipment. Now, because equipment in the game has a very specific color based on the modifiers of the armor or the modifiers of the weapon, you can sort of tell what kind of equipment she is using depending on what her color is. So this is how we're going to know. So if she is using light gold armor, then she has no enhancements. It is normal, and it pretty much just has light radius. If it is a dark gold armor, then it is a 24% faster hit recovery. If it is a pale gold armor, which we saw earlier, that is a saintly effect, and saintly is a bonus to defense. If it is an orange armor, it is attacker takes damage of. If it is a white armor, that is actually the plus defense based on character level of your Valkyrie. And if it is a blue armor, it is a chance to cast Frost Nova or Nova. The dark red armor is poison length reduced by 75%, and the red armor is the huge life bonus and double regeneration rate, which is usually the modifier of the whale or something along those lines. So as you can see right now, she is utilizing the dark red armor, which is not the one we want. That is the poison length reduction.
Not here.
She does, however, have the black spear, and we're going to go over that next. So the weapon colors are different. So if she is utilizing a blue weapon, she has a chance to deal cold damage and the potential use of a cold skill upon striking. If it is a teal weapon, it is a chance to deal lightning damage with a potential use of lightning damage on striking. If she is using a green weapon, that one's obvious. That one is poison damage. If it is a black weapon, like the one she has right now, the black weapon is an enhanced damage modifier, usually known as cruel. The cruel effect is one of the effects that people love to look for on magical items, specifically because cruel is anywhere between 250, I believe, to almost 400% enhanced damage, depending on how it rolls. So if you see your Valkyrie with a black spear, that usually means it is a really, really nice amount of damage. She can also spawn with a white spear, and this one is a large bonus to attack rating. Think about the Fool's mod. So what we do is we essentially summon her over and over again, and we try and get a specific set of variables that we would specifically want to use for our Valkyrie. We don't want the dark gold armor. That one is faster hit recovery, and it looks like she's utilizing a teal spear, which is probably, or sorry, the regular color spear actually. So we won't want that one. Now she has the black spear, but she's still using the dark gold armor, which is probably not what we want. And to get the absolutely perfect Valkyrie that you would probably want for most scenarios, you're most likely going to be looking for a red armored Valkyrie with a black spear. And sometimes it can take a little while. In 2.4, they did facilitate this a little bit nicer because they decreased the delay in having to spawn your Valkyrie, which is definitely very nice, which means you can go through this process a lot easier, and you can try and find your ideal Valkyrie a lot quicker than you could before. In the original or the new version of the game, it's a little bit more difficult to see the color of the Valkyrie's weapon. It's not so difficult to see the color of the Valkyrie's armor, but the weapon color is definitely a lot harder to see in the new version of the game than the old one. And you could sit here and you could try this for a very long time to get your perfect Valkyrie, but you really eventually you kind of just give up and settle for something like maybe I'll end up with the black spear but not the red armor, or maybe I'll end up with the red armor but not the black spear. Either one is nice, but having both together makes for a much tankier Valkyrie in general. And if you've ever wondered that, if you've ever like summoned your Valkyrie one time and you've just been like, wow, this Valkyrie is absolutely amazing. Why is she so ridiculously tanky? That is your answer to the question, believe it or not, is that believe it or not, there are Valkyries that will be tankier than others, specifically because of those scenarios. Now, there are other things to go over when it comes to the Valkyrie. Not only can you beef up her strength, but there are also specific levels that are very important for her. If you would like to use the Valkyrie as a tank, get her to level 17. That is the point at which she obtains the War Pike, and it is going to increase her damage exponentially and make her a lot more useful in general. So if you would like to have a useful Valkyrie, level 17 is the bare minimum that I would recommend so that you can have a very, very useful Valkyrie. As you can see, mine has absolutely no trouble killing things. She is actually surprisingly good at killing things, and a little bit too good, in my opinion. She's better than me in most scenarios, but I mean, that was kind of the goal, was to make a Valkyrie that could literally just kind of do whatever she wanted and kill whoever she wanted. She can literally tank Ubers, by the way. She has absolutely no trouble tanking Ubers. That's how ridiculously tanky and ridiculously strong she is right now. Now, the Valkyrie does obtain lots of benefits from other abilities. So as you beef up yourself, your Valkyrie will also get those abilities herself. So, for instance, when you beef up Critical Strike, she will get the Critical Strike. Hard points only, mind you. So plus to skills does not give your Valkyrie these buffs. It has to be hard points. When you beef up Penetrate, she will increase her attack rating. When you beef up your Dodge, Avoid, and Evade, her Dodge, Avoid, and Evade will go up. Also, she gains life every time you put points into Decoy, which is also very nice for her because it gives her a massive bonus. As you can see, at level 40, she has a life of 5,632, which is pretty darn nice. 2,400% attack rating increase, a damage increase of 975%, defense bonus of 390%, and she costs 64 mana to cast. Now, I wouldn't recommend specifically building your Valkyrie as tanky as my Valkazon, but it definitely comes in handy to have just a massively awesome tanking Valkyrizon as this. Now, there are some downsides to her. Most notably is that she's relatively slow in her kill speed. And I've always noticed this about her, is that she doesn't attack very fast. But when she does hit, she hits really hard. I am hoping that the increases to Impale, the change to Impale, will have a very nice effect on her in the coming patches. In 2.4, they have changed the way that Impale works, making it hit every single time without fail. And they have also made it so that Impale also adds a slow effect. I'm fairly certain that she uses Impale, but I'm not 100% on that. But I'm fairly certain that the Valkyrie uses the Impale ability when she attacks, which is good, because that means that she will hit harder. As you can see, this is hell difficulty, and she doesn't really have too much trouble with anything. She's not like the super most ridiculous fast killing creature in the world, but she's nigh unkillable. I can support her with my decoy, and I can also utilize other abilities to help her kill a little bit faster. I went with a crushing blow build, essentially crushing blow to basically apply as much percentage base damage as I could to monsters, and also an AoE ability like Lightning Fury, which allows me to apply AoE damage to multiple targets, and she can finish them off. I don't have any points into the Javelin and Spear skill tree, and I don't have any points into the Bow and Crossbow tree. This is literally a passive Zon. A very powerful passive Zon, mind you, but a passive Zon nonetheless. Now, when it comes to the Valkyrie, I would recommend that just about any Amazon get it. In the past, I do know that some Amazons have avoided getting the Valkyrie because it required you to put points into dodge, avoid, and evade. And in the past, dodge, avoid, and evade have been bugged. And sometimes they would end up getting you killed. However, in 2.4, they have fixed pretty much every problem with dodge, avoid, and evade. And they are now amazing abilities. They no longer interrupt your attacks. And the animation for dodge, avoiding, and evading can now be interrupted by abilities, which makes them kind of no-brainers. and opens up the ability to utilize the Valkyrie more often on some builds which you might have been avoiding them on. Now, the Valkyrie also is available on certain items. So there are two items in the game. The first one is the Harmony Missile Weapon. It is a rune word that has a random value between 2 and 6 to Valkyrie, and this will allow you to summon the Valkyrie. The other is the Peace Armor, which has a % chance to cast a Valkyrie on striking. It's a level 15 Valkyrie with a 2% chance to cast, which is pretty cool. So if you were to utilize the Peace Body Armor, you would get a free Valkyrie, and if you utilize the Harmony Missile Weapon, it will actually give you Valkyrie, and you can utilize the Valkyrie that way. Do keep in mind, though, that I have noticed that with the Peace Body Armor, the Valkyrie will desummon if you don't actually have the Valkyrie skill, at least 1 point into the Valkyrie. And the Harmony Missile Weapon also has some bugs where the Valkyrie will despawn as well. I'm not sure why in particular he or she will despawn. The Valkyrie will despawn. Specifically, it doesn't seem to be something that should happen, but it does. Technically, if you have the skill, and that's what Harmony gives you, is it gives you the skill, you shouldn't technically be having the Valkyrie desummon, but it does. The Peace Body Armor, on the other hand, though, just simply casts Valkyrie. And a lot of the times when you're wearing the Peace Body Armor, you may not even be an Amazon, and the Valkyrie just pops up, and then all of a sudden will just disappear again right after he casts. I do find the Peace Body Armor to be a little obnoxious, because what happens is the Valkyrie is constantly being summoned, and when the Valkyrie is summoned, the Valkyrie also dies. And the Valkyrie has a pretty terrible noise when she dies, and imagine that going off all the time. It is also important to note that the level 15 Valkyrie that you get from Peace is not affected by plus to skills. It will be affected by the synergy bonuses. So, for instance, if you have Critical Strike, Penetrate, and the Evades, it will get those bonuses from you if you are an Amazon. However, it is not affected by plus to skills, which means that you get a level 15 Valkyrie. Which kind of sucks because, as we were talking about earlier, the level 17 Valkyrie is really the superior one. The Harmony Missile weapon, on the other hand, is an O skill, which means it's actually giving you the skill, and it is actually affected by plus to skills. So keep that in mind. The last thing that I want to go over with the Valkyrie is that, of course, it's difficult to determine exactly where the Valkyrie stands at any given point. If you want to force the Valkyrie into a position, the easiest way to do so is to teleport to that position, either by using something like an Enigma armor, maybe a teleport amulet, or whatever it may be. You can't really direct her. You can't really tell her what to do. But with a teleport item, you could potentially force her into the location that you would want the Valkyrie to be in. And that's kind of the best case scenario for getting the Valkyrie to do what you want it to do. She freaking one-shot that dude. I know he was at half health and everything, but she literally just walked up and one-shot him, which was freaking hilarious. Oh, man, the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is a powerful beast of a tank. I'm going to tell you what. She really is. The fact that the Valkyrie can tank the Ubers is amazing. And the fact that you can resummon her if she dies is also amazing. She is essentially a free, reusable tank, which honestly works extremely well in combination with other abilities. Number one is if you have a mercenary, that's one body. You are two bodies. You can also summon a decoy. That is 3 bodies. You can have the Valkyrie. That is 4 bodies. And if you were potentially wearing a stone rune word, you could potentially have a clay golem too, which is 5 bodies, and you can have a nice little army with your Valkyrie, which is absolutely nice. And she is, of course, affected by auras. So if you have any very nice auras, like maybe if your mercenary is using a faith bow and you've got fanaticism running, or maybe your might merc, has might, or maybe you have defiance running, or blessed aim, or whatever it may be, she's going to be able to benefit from those things as well, and hit pretty darn hard in the process. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. I hope that I've given you a little bit of insight on the Valkyrie, and as always, keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. We're on a Necromancer, so we might as well do a Necromancer ability. I just finished Teleport, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? We're on a Necromancer now, so let's do Necromancer abilities. And you know what? We're going to start out with a really, really nice one, which is Corpse Explosion. Corpse Explosion is an amazing ability. It is hard to undersell Corpse Explosion, just simply because Corpse Explosion is so ridiculously powerful, and it's hard even to explain Corpse Explosion to anyone who is not aware of how powerful it is, because it doesn't really have numbers on it. It doesn't say, oh, this ability does 500 to 1,000 damage. It doesn't say this ability does 10,000 to 50,000 damage. It doesn't say this ability does 600 million to 700 million damage. And believe it or not, it can do all those numbers and more. And the reason is because Corpse Explosion is a percentage-based damage, which means that it goes off of the percentage of the monster's HP of the corpse that's being exploded. Now, unfortunately, because Corpse Explosion is a ability that is only capable of being used when something dies, it tends to be really slow in certain situations. So you have to work on a reliable method to take out those targets. In other words, if you can't reliably kill them, well, then who is going to reliably kill them? Because, you know, corpse explosion isn't going to do that for you. Corpse explosion is going to accelerate the rate at which things die. So as things begin to die, corpse explosion will accelerate that exponentially. However, you have to obtain the first couple kills to start the chain of events. So what does corpse explosion do exactly? All right, so let's read off the ability first and then we'll talk about it. So casts on a corpse of a slain monster, it explodes, damaging nearby enemies, and it does 70 to 120% of the corpse's life. I currently have it at level 27, and it has a radius of 11.3 yards at level 27. Now, the radius of corpse explosion does go up as you increase the level, but the damage does not, okay? So the ability is always going to do 70 to 1. This increases as you increase the skill level. At level 1, it's only a radius. It's not going to hit anything. It's only going to hit the monster at directly beneath the explosion. And maybe the monsters that are like standing over the corpse looking at it. As you level it up to level 2, it goes to 3 yards. At level 6, it's 4.3 yards. At level 10, it's 5.6 yards. At level 20, it's 9 yards, and so forth and so on until you get to where I'm at right now, which is level 27 at 11.3 yards. And if I swap to my actual real equipment, which has lots and lots of plus to skills, I go even higher and can get that radius up even more. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, why would you want to increase the radius? Well, because it does a massive amount of damage. I want you to think about it like this. Let's say you have 20 cows, all right? All 20 cows have 10,000 HP. And one of those cows dies, and you explode that cow's corpse. That corpse will deal 70 to 120% of that corpse's life, okay? So if you have a 10,000 HP cow, 70% of 10,000 is 7,000 damage. There are 20 cows nearby. One of them died to give you a corpse, and you can dish out 7,000 damage to 19 cows, which is a lot of freaking damage. The larger the radius is, the more the explosion will be useful, and the more the explosion is useful, the more things die, and the more things die, the more corpses you have, and the more corpses you have, the faster things die. And that is really all I can say about corpse explosion, is that it literally is an exponential death rate depending on how many corpses you have within range. Take, for instance, Hindleskin up here. I'm going to curse him, and I can't use corpse explosion until something dies. But as soon as corpse explosion is available, I'm going to start exploding corpses. Here we have another group of monsters, and I'm going to start exploding corpses over here, and everything is going to die. Oh, I got a death mask. What's that? Blackthorn's face? Blackthorn's face. Now, when it comes to corpse explosion, there are some things that you need to know. Some things that don't really get explained very well. Number one, corpse explosion is technically a fire skill. So any piece of equipment that gives plus fire skills will give a bonus to corpse explosion. Number two, corpse explosion is governed by faster cast rate. So if you would like to cast corpse explosion faster, you're going to need something to increase your faster cast rate. Number three, the damage type of corpse explosion is not strictly fire. Despite the fact that it is a fire skill, it is actually two different damage types combined. So corpse explosion is 50% physical and 50% fire. This, by the elemental side, the fire side, can also benefit from the lower resistance curse, which also reduces the fire resistance of the monster, which will increase the amount of fire damage that the monster takes. You can also potentially use Conviction, either from a paladin or from the Infinity Rune Word, to gain a boost in the fire damage effect as well. Now, because Corpse Explosion has a massive radius, you're going to notice that it's going to hit just about everything. If I take my guys up here to this particular zone and I start cursing away with Amplify Damage, because I like to increase the damage of my curse, you'll notice that things are dying that aren't anywhere even near the Corpse Explosion. And this is the beauty of building Corpse Explosion. So I'm relying on my army to take out the monsters, but I am relying on Corpse Explosion to finish the monsters off. And one of the ways that you can focus down a target relatively quickly is to teleport on top of them. This causes your entire army to teleport into one place, Corpse Explode everything nearby. Now, the downsides of this is that, number one, you need corpses. So if you don't have corpses, you're not Corpse Exploding. The majority of the bosses in the game do not have corpses near them. Baal does not have corpses for you to take advantage of. Diablo does not have corpses for you to take advantage of. Duriel does not have corpses for you to take advantage of. And Dariel does have corpses for you to take advantage of, and she's one of the few. So keep that in mind as you think about Corpse Explosion, because Corpse Explosion, although it is an extremely powerful ability, it also has some very serious downsides. It is also important to note that with Corpse Explosion, you can sabotage yourself. And you might be asking yourself, well, how can I sabotage myself with Corpse Explosion? Well, if you have any type of effect that will cause a target to shatter, cold damage, holy freeze, freezes target effects, if you have them equipped on your mercenary, if you make an iron golem out of something that has freezes target on it, if you are, in a group with players that have freezes target and they are shattering corpses on a regular basis, anytime a corpse is shattered, it cannot be used for a Corpse Explosion. If the corpse has already been violated in some way by another ability, you will also not be able to use it. Redemption on the Paladin will consume corpses. Find Item and Find Potion on the Barbarian, as well as Grimward on the Barbarian, will consume the corpse and it will not be usable for Corpse Explosion. Your own skills, as in Raise Skeleton and Raise Skeletal Mage and Revive, will also affect corpses, because every time that you summon a skeleton, that corpse is no longer usable for Corpse Explosion. And this becomes a very interesting mini-game of juggling the corpses and trying to utilize them all to their best extent. There are other abilities, like the Druid has Carrion Vines, which will eat the corpses. There are also items in the game which prevent corpses from being used at all. One of those such items, which is relatively common, is called Nature's Peace. And Nature's Peace has an effect called Slain Monsters Rest in Peace. Now, when you are utilizing a Nature's Peace ring, none of the corpses that are gotten cause the corpses to be unusable. And there is another such item. Actually, there's so when I achieve a kill as a Amazon, or as a character wielding the Slain Monsters Rest in Peace effect, you will notice a very peculiar thing will happen. Notice it seems like their souls are leaving their body, right? This is an effect of Slain Monsters Rest in Peace, and this basically means that the corpse is no longer usable by any corpse abilities. And for a character who has Tyrael's Might or Nature's Peace, or any of the other items that have Slain Monsters Rest in Peace, and you are running with a Necromancer or another such character who utilizes an effect which can be obtained off of items. So it's important to note that there are certain items in the game that will actually give you the Corpse Explosion effect. And because Corpse Explosion is such an amazing ability, it doesn't necessarily have to be cast by a Necromancer. And I want you guys to keep this in mind. There are currently 3 items in the game which will give you corpse explosion charges, and those 3 items are the black rune word, which can be made in a club, hammer, or mace, I believe. There are 12 of them. I actually just did a video one not too long ago, which has level 5 charges, and they are 40 of them as the Necromancer's Corpse Explosion. So when you're in the middle of combat on your Barbarian or your Paladin, and you would like to just simply cast a couple Corpse Explosions, these items can actually be extremely powerful for that reason. As you can see on my Necromancer earlier, we were able to just mow through just about everything utilizing Corpse Explosion, Amplify Damage, and other sources. The Barbarian's Grimoire, by the way, will also enhance the damage of Corpse Explosion, which is another very nice effect. Also, if you were a Paladin who was using Conviction, you could also increase the fire damage side of Corpse Explosion, utilizing the same effect. I do not believe that you can get Corpse Explosion in charges on any rare or blue items. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can't. Just double checking in my own mind, but I'm pretty sure the answer to that question is no. So keep that in mind. If you are not using Corpse Explosion on your Necromancer, I would recommend that you at least put 1 point into it. Corpse Explosion is extremely powerful of an ability, and it's just one of those abilities that you really, really, really want to have on a Necromancer. And I hear you guys. I hear you. There are those of you out here just like me who are like, but I want to build a Necromancer that doesn't use Corpse Explosion. It feels like all my Necromancers use Corpse Explosion. And there's a reason why they all use Corpse Explosion, because Corpse Explosion is just nuts. It really is. And you could, of course, build a Necromancer that doesn't use Corpse Explosion, but why, though? I mean, to be honest with you, it's just such a powerful ability that throwing it into every build is like throwing Holy Shield onto every Paladin, or throwing Natural Resistance onto every Barbarian. It's just an advantage that Necromancers have that other classes don't, except the Assassin. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we are exploding corpses with methane gas and watching the bone bits fly all over the place. And as always, keep watching. Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. I felt like we should cover a fun one today, and what are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to cover Teleport. Teleport is an interesting ability that, quite honestly, is sought after by most characters in the Diablo 2 world. By fast, very, very basic, right? Sure, most of you know what teleport does by this point, but just in case you're unaware, to teleport from your original location to the place where you click. So the further away you click, the farther the distance is. The shorter you click, the shorter the distance is. You can also teleport into town, but you cannot teleport out of town. It was actually something that was used to trick people out of items for quite some time. People used to tell other people that they could dupe their items, and they would say, go ahead into the corner of town right here and drop all your items on the ground, and I'll duplicate them. And don't worry, I'll be outside of town. I totally won't be able to steal those items. And then they would just go whoop, and they would come steal all the items and and laugh and leave. So teleport has some interesting abilities, and one of those abilities is the ability to get you killed. Teleport is, more often than not, a dangerous tool in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it. And you might be asking yourself, well, why is that? Well, because teleport is actually kind of slow. If you don't have faster cast rate, if you don't have what you need to be able to teleport in and teleport out of danger, you will often find yourself in just absolutely awful situations. So, for instance, if I were to teleport in the middle of a group of monsters, there's a very good chance that I would not be able to teleport out again. And the reason for this is because, well, when you get hit by a faster hit recovery stun, and I know this is not a faster hit recovery stun video, so forgive me for going over a mechanic that is not technically part of this ability. So, very briefly, I'm just going to go over, because this is not a faster hit recovery video, I'm going to go over very briefly what faster recovery is. Faster hit recovery is the ability for a monster or you to stun the opposing monster or you, depending on how much HP is lost. The more HP that is lost gives 25 faster hit recovery stun. I will recover from that faster hit recovery stun 25% faster. Now, why am I talking about this specifically in regards to teleport? Well, if I am teleporting along and I happen to teleport in the middle of a whole bunch of monsters, there is a very, very good chance of killed in these situations. Now, there are a couple ways that you can deal with this. Number one is to increase your defenses. The higher your defense, the block attacks to completely negate the attacks in terms of when somebody comes in and they check against your defense and they fail, they obviously will miss. There are also ways that you can increase your resistance to faster hit recovery stuns. Since faster hit recovery stuns are directly related to the percentage of HP taken off your bar, in other words, the more percent that is taken off your bar, the higher the chance is. For instance, if a monster hit me for half of my bar, and it doesn't matter how much I have, so forth and so on. And as you can see where I'm going with this, is that the more HP you have, then the less chance there is for you to get stuck in a faster hit recovery stun. There is also one more way to deal with faster hit recovery stuns as far as teleporting is concerned, and that is to teleport really, really fast. So if you teleport into a group of monsters and you are holding down the teleport button, this does not apply if you stop, okay? If you physically stop your character, that does not apply to this. But if you are running along with your teleport character, you are teleporting, and you are holding down the button, if you have enough faster cast rate to the point that your character will teleport in and teleport out before the monster can successfully complete an attack, you will be safe. But here's where this teleport could fail you in this regard. However, having very high teleport faster cast, having a very high faster cast rate will save you in certain situations where you would otherwise die. So if you find yourself dying all the time to teleport, if you were trying to get a certain amount of faster cast on, say, a druid or a barbarian or whatever it is that you may want, every single one of them is going to have a different faster cast breakpoint system, except for Barbarian, which for some reason I think is exactly the same as Sorceress, which is just silly. And basically what you're looking at is you're looking to get to an exact number. Now, let's start with a Sorceress, and I'm fairly certain this is the right number for the Sorceress. You need at least 63% faster cast if you want this to work with teleport. If you want to be 63%, which I believe is 9 frames. Let me double check this real quick. 63%, yes, 9 frames. So you're going to recovery is pretty easily obtainable and is honestly a good number for sorceresses. Every character is different, though. Every character has different breakpoints for faster cast rate and for faster hit recovery, and so you're going to have to look at each individual character, by themselves. Teleport would be good for besides just simply getting around quickly. Well, the answer to that question is actually in different classes. So there are definitely a lot of other classes in the game. Obviously, you've got barbarians, assassins, you've got necromancers, you've got paladins, you've got all sorts of different characters. Well, everybody usually has a mercenary, and also, dang, that snuck up on me. And everybody usually has some type of minion. Like the Amazon has the Valkyrie, the Necromancer has his army. the golems and the skeletons, the revives. The druid has his bear and his wolves and his he's got so to demonstrate how useful teleport can be to a non-sorceress class and how it can be useful in a way other than just simply making yourself go fast. Gotta go fast. Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm going to bring you to my Necromancer. So this is my Necromancer. His name is Naked Mancer because I originally played him using only Magic Find equipment. So here we are, and I have my army. My army is spread out all over the battlefield, right? So everywhere that my army can possibly be is not where I want them to be. I would rather them be, sort of with me than wherever they would like to be. And if I go up here to this particular zone, I would maybe like my army to come up here and fight Pindleskin. But look at my army. Look at how terrible they are behaving. Look at how spread out they are and how not in where I would like them to be. So what do? Well, I teleport myself directly on top of where I want them to be. And when you teleport, your entire army comes with you. And as you can see, my entire army is now focused in one zone. Or rather, if I wanted, focused on one particular monster. And this is a very interesting thing. If you are a Necromancer or a Zoo Druid or any character that has an army of any kind, or a minion, or maybe you're a Valkazon. Maybe you've built like the most ridiculously high level, like level 50 Valkyrie that you've ever had, and you want to have a way to focus your Valkyrie onto the target that you want him to fight. Well, this is how you can do it. You can literally take your army and you can stomp directly on top of a monster's head, and you can kill them. Any monster that you want. Like if I want to kill this Urdar, well, goodbye Urdar, because my entire army is now on top of the Urdar. In this way, teleport can be extremely effective for a myriad of reasons. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, how can you get a hold of teleport? Well, there's a lot of different items that have teleport. One of them in particular, which is probably the most notorious, is the Enigma rune word, which is a rune word that actually grants the teleport ability. But there are other ways that you can get your hands on teleport items besides just simply Enigma. You don't necessarily need to be able to spam the ability for it to be useful. As you can see with my Necromancer, who is not using Enigma, by the way, he is capable of teleporting onto targets. So how does he do this? How is he capable of teleporting onto a target when you can't? So besides Enigma, there are a couple ways. Obviously, Enigma gives you +1. There is also the Spell Steel Bearded Axe, which will give you 20 charges of level teleport, which is absolutely fine. The level does not matter as far as charges are concerned. There is also Naj's Puzzler Elder Staff, which will give you 69 charges. That's right, 69 of level 11 teleport. We also have the Oculus Swirling Crystal, which will randomly teleport you around, but that one is a sorceress item. You can also have the effect appear on certain items in the game. So it's called a charge suffix. And what this means is that there are certain items in the game that can spawn with teleport charges. And those include amulets, circlets, staves, and orbs. Now, amulets are absolutely amazing when you find them with teleport charges. This is my particular amulet that I found for my Necromancer, and I will do. Now, I prefer the amulet because I don't have to swap to it, but some people don't really particularly care whether it's an amulet, a staff, a circlet, or whatever, just so long as they have a form of teleport to help them out. Now, what you would do is you would specifically look for an item that has teleport charges on it. And speaking of charges, here's a lower resistance staff with level 1 lower resist charges of 22, which is actually not bad. Lower resist charges are actually pretty sweet as well. And what you would do is you would go in and out of shops repeatedly until you found one that had teleport charges, and you could buy it. There is an exact level that you can go to, and you can find teleport charges. I believe Ormus, I want to say Ormus in normal difficulty is one of the best ones. So if you created a game and you went to this before, it does require either A, you to be alone in the game, or B, for everyone to leave the town. And you might be asking yourself, well, why is that? And that is basically because if you do not leave town, if there is still one person left in town, his inventory will not refresh. All right. It doesn't matter how you leave town. You can leave by waypoint. You can walk outside of town. You can leave and come back if you want to. But the easiest way is just simply to walk outside of town. As you can see, I currently have the same exact items in here because I have not left town yet. But if I walk over here to the exit, make sure that I see the notification that I have left town. See, entering Spider Forest, and then immediately walk back in and check Ormus's shop again. He will have a refreshed shop. This is what's called shopping, essentially. So we are when I find a teleport amulet or a teleport staff or something like that, I will usually hold on to it for other people. And that is another way that you could obtain a teleport item, which is through gambling. So one of the ways that I've actually gotten a lot of my teleport amulets is actually by gambling. I'll save up a lot of money and I will go to the gamble shop and I will gamble for amulets until I find myself a teleport amulet. Sometimes those amulets will be exceedingly good. Since the gamble shop depends on the level of your character, and the higher level your character is, the better the chance you'll get something very nice.
What do you need?
Here is the Gambler. This is Alcor in Act 3. There's gamblers in every single zone, and I could, of course, gamble for an item from him. I'd like to reduce the cost of that, though. So before I go through the process of gambling from Alcor, let me grab my Edge Bow, which has a 15% reduction in vendor cost.
I can't.
And And we will also grab my Geeds, which also has a reduction in vendor cost. So I will have a total of 15% and 15%, which is a reduction of 30% in vendor costs for this item. And as you can see earlier, when it was 63,000, and now it is only 44,100. And I'm going to gamble for a couple amulets. Let's see what we end up with. So no good, no good, no good, no good, no good. No good. Level 1 Grim Ward charges. Very interesting. Grim Ward, if you guys are aware, is the one that makes all the monsters run away. It has gotten a really nice synergy bonus, but unfortunately, without the synergy bonus, it's not really much use. And all resistance is 3, all resistance is 5, and I just realized that I am in Act 3 normal, so I'm not getting full value for these items. And I would like to get full value for these items. So do keep that in mind when you are gambling, is that you probably want to gamble somewhere where you will get full value for the items that you're gambling for. And you know what, let's do a little bit more gambling. This is a fun little video. Let's see if we can grab ourselves a teleport item. Because I feel like that's the point of this, right? Is to see if we can grab a teleport item relatively easily. I've already done the staff before in another video, but I don't think I've grabbed a teleport amulet before in a video. And you guys can get a little bit of gambling out of it. Who doesn't like to gamble?
May I help you?
Come on, Geed, let's do some gambling. Useful for a character who doesn't have any kind of tanking, so we'll hold on to that. And nothing good. +2 element get one is most likely going to be blue. So do keep that in mind. +1 assassin, all resistances 4. Not really that great with tornado charges. Meh. But as you can see, it's worth 35,000 gold though. And that one's terrible. +1 Amazonian. Oh wow, +3 cold skills with 51 life. 3. So no luck on the teleport amulet. I think I'm out of gold. Maybe I have enough for one more. 2 more. Oh wow, +2 druid with 22% magic find. Not bad. +2 druid with 22% magic find. That could be useful in a magic finding druid. Maybe for a zoo druid. Ah, yes. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when it's a 21-minute video on teleporting. I hope I've given you some insight on what teleport could potentially be used for, and, you know, maybe you'll think about grabbing a teleport amulet for your necromancer. Keep watching. Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. I'm on a little bit of a barbarian kick today because I figured I might as well tackle Berserk.